Chapter 759. Right at this moment, a black shadow rushed over from afar. It was the black-clothed man who had stolen the little fellow, the eldest disciple of the sword saint, Shiro Chiba. He came behind Kyo Chiba and said respectfully, "Master, I'm back." Kyo Chiba still looked into the distance with a deep gaze and said softly, "How's it going?" "It's very smooth. I've brought Chin Haodong's daughter back to Neon. Now I'm handing her over to Aiwa Miura and hiding her in the underground base in Kawakita Prefecture. Should be safe." Kyo Chiba said, "Well done. Master, there's something I don't quite understand. I wonder if I should ask?" Kyo Chiba said, "Go ahead. Chin Haodong killed Chiba Mieko, so he should be sentenced to death. But as long as Master personally goes to kill him, everything will be over. Is there any need to go through so much trouble?" Kyo Chiba said, "It's not as simple as you say. There are many masters in Wuxia, and Chin Haodong is on good terms with Shenyuan Ligay, the master of the Shenyuan Pavilion. The headquarters of the Shenyuan Pavilion is in the capital. Even if I am a master of the Saint Realm, it is not so easy to kill people in the capital. Maybe I will lose myself there. Only in our own land can we have 100% certainty." At this point he turned around and said, "There's another reason why I'm doing this. I failed to break through to the middle stage of the Saint Realm in closed-door cultivation some time ago, and I don't have much time left. The Shenyuan Pavilion of Wuxia has always been a big problem for our country. Shenyuan Ligay is a strong person at the Saint Realm. When I'm alive, the Shenyuan Pavilion can't do anything to us. Once I leave, I'm afraid that Kishi Sato and Shinobu Inamoto alone won't be able to fight against Shenyuan Ligay. So this time, I will drag Shenyuan Ligay to hell with me at the risk of my life to benefit the future generations of our country." "I understand, Master." Shiro Chiba bowed respectfully and then said, "Even if we want to lure Chin Haodong and Shenyuan Ligay, we have already taken Yagyu Yukaim of the Yagyu family hostage. She is Chin Haodong's woman. Why did he go all the way to catch that little girl?" Kyo Chiba said, "Remember, no matter what you do, you have to be safe. Although Yagyu Yukaim is Chin Haodong's woman, she is from Neon after all. It's normal for Chin Haodong to ignore her. Now that we have captured his daughter, we have double insurance. We don't need to be afraid that he won't come to our country." "Master is indeed far-sighted," Shiro Chiba said. "What should we do now?" Kyo Chiba looked at the setting sun. "It's almost time. Call Chin Haodong." "Understood, Master." Shiro Chiba agreed and took out a mobile phone from his pocket. In the capital, after the Tang sect received Chin Haodong's order, the members of the Tang sect who were outside rushed back one after another. Shenyuan Ligay, the pavilion master of the Shenyuan Pavilion, followed them with 4 saint-level protector elders. The Tang sect had just made such a big noise that it was impossible not to alarm the Shenyuan Pavilion. Knowing that something big had happened to the Tang sect, Shenyuan Ligay immediately rushed over with the elders of the Tsihang Sword House. After seeing Chin Haodong, she said respectfully, "Sacred Lord, is something wrong? Do you need my help?" Chin Haodong briefly told her about Tang Tang's disappearance and then said, "Use your Shenyuan Pavilion's intelligence system to find out who the other party is and what their purpose is. I'll ask someone to check it out right now." Shenyuan Ligay agreed, but before she could take out her mobile phone, Chin Haodong's phone rang. There was a string of strange numbers on it, and it was not a Wuxia phone number. He immediately realized that it was the person who had kidnapped Tang Tang and pressed the answer button. A stiff Wuxia language came from the other side of the phone. "Chin Haodong, your daughter is in our hands, and the girl from the Yagyu family is also in our hands." Chin Haodong was slightly shocked. He did not expect that Yagyu Yukaim would also be captured by them. "Tell me, what's your purpose? Get to Chiba Island in Japan within 12 hours, or wait to collect the bodies of your daughter and Yagyu Yukaim?" After that, the other party hung up the phone without waiting for him to answer. Seeing that Chin Haodong had hung up, Chu Shinue immediately asked nervously, "Son, who kidnapped Tang Tang? How much do they want?" Chin Haodong said in a cold voice, "It's the Neon people. They don't want money. They want me to get there within 12 hours. Hearing that it was the Neon people who had kidnapped Tang Tang, Hu Shaoxian shouted angrily, "These damn Neon people, let's go and kill them now." After entering the Saint Realm, she was full of confidence when she spoke. Shenyuan Ligay was relatively calmer. She said, "Since the Neon people asked us to go there, they must have made sufficient preparations. We must be careful." A strong killing intent flashed in Chin Haodong's eyes. Tang Tang was his reverse scale. No matter who it was, as long as they touched his daughter, they would be killed without mercy. Feng Wu said, "Let's go together. I don't believe that so many saints can't destroy that island country." Xinyuan Ligay said, Sacred Master Feng Wu is right. Let's go together. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks are useless. Qin Haodong said, all those who have reached the Saint Realm will go with me. The others will stay in the Tang sect. Lin Momo hurriedly shouted, take me with you. Tang Tang was her daughter, so she was naturally worried about the little fellow's safety. Well then you'll come with us. After that, Qin Haodong left the Tang sect with Lin Momo and the other saints and rushed to the airport. The Xianyuan pavilion had already applied for the route. They got on Qin Haodong's private plane and flew in the direction of Neon. At this time, there were a total of 12 saints on the plane, including Xinyuan Ligay, who was at the middle stage of the Saint Realm. This kind of strength was enough to make any force tremble. Qiu Chiba represented the peak of the Neon force. He had confronted Wuxia for many years, so he was very clear about the strength of the Xianyuan pavilion. This time, his time was coming, so he set up this trap and wanted to launch a desperate attack. He was a very cautious person. Just as he had said to Shiro Chiba, he pursued perfection in everything. This time the plan was also extremely precise. But he had never imagined that Xinyuan Ligay had become a strong master at the middle stage of the Saint Realm, leaving him far behind. Most importantly, he had underestimated the strength of the Tang sect. If he knew that this plan had provoked a total of 12 saint-level experts who knew what he would think. In a small valley on the edge of Kawakita County, Neon, there was a very secret underground military base with extremely tight defense. In a secret room, a senior officer in military uniform was staring at the little girl in front of him. His name was Koji Honda. He had been ordered by Eiwa Miura, the highest officer of the underground base, to guard Tang Tang. Eiwa Miura had repeatedly told him that this little girl had a special identity and he had to keep an eye on her without any mistakes. He agreed very well, but he didn't take it seriously. This was a heavily guarded underground base. How could a little girl of 3 or 4 years old in front of him run away? He even thought that as an officer he was making a big fuss over a trivial matter. It was a little too much to tie up such a lovely little girl with a rope. Tang Tang originally had the Suzaku sacred body, and her physique was far stronger than that of ordinary people. At this time, the acupoints that Shiro Chiba had pressed had been automatically opened by the genuine qi running in her body. She slowly opened her eyes and looked around. After making sure that she had left the Tang sect, she actually laughed. She had always wanted to run out, but now she had finally been taken out. Seeing Tang Tang wake up, Koji Honda was a little nervous. He was not afraid of anything else, but he was afraid that the little girl would cry. But he didn't expect that the little girl in front of him not only did not cry, but also looked very happy. Tang Tang struggled to stand up, but found that she was tied with a rope. She said to Koji Honda in front of her, "Uncle, can you help me untie the rope?" One of the important reasons why Koji Honda was chosen to guard Tang Tang here was that he knew Wuxia language. "I can't do that. I received an order to tie you up." The little fellow felt that it was too uncomfortable to be tied up with the rope. Koji Honda didn't help her untie it. Suddenly she had an idea and directly used fox hypnosis. "Uncle, help me untie the rope." This time Koji Honda's eyes flashed with confusion. He obediently came over to help her untie the rope. The little fellow moved her limbs and said, "Bad guy, you're sleepy? Go to sleep." Koji Honda answered and lay on the ground. Soon there was a snoring sound. It's so fun. Instead of being afraid of being kidnapped, the little fellow was very happy. After leaving them, she could finally have fun. Moreover, Auntie Xiaoxian had said that there was no psychological burden to use fox hypnosis on bad people. She didn't have to worry that her mother would scold her, and she didn't have to worry about being expelled from school. She opened the door and ran out. She met another soldier. When the man saw Tang Tang, he was stunned at first. But before he could react, he felt an irresistible sleepiness and fell asleep on the ground. Fun. After reaching the second level of fox hypnosis, she could directly control other people's minds with her spiritual force without using words. She ran forward and saw that there was a door next to her, so she pushed it open and walked in. There were all kinds of instruments and electronic screens in the room. Jiro Ono, the commander, was busy with 7 or 8 soldiers. Because the little fellow was small, she did not attract other people's attention when she entered the door. She turned around and felt that these things were not interesting, so she lost interest and said to Jiro Ono, "Shall we play games together?" Hearing someone talking, Jiro Ono was startled. When he saw Tang Tang, he was about to move, but he was controlled by a powerful spiritual force. "Don't move. Listen to me. I'll take you to play a fun game." Under the control of fox hypnosis, these soldiers nodded together and were as obedient as they could be, Now I'm a teacher and you're my students. I'll teach you, okay? The little fellow had been under the control of a teacher when she was in kindergarten, so she dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. Today, when she saw these soldiers, she wanted to be a teacher. Naturally, these people would not object to her proposal. Under the control of fox hypnosis, they sat down in front of her obediently. The little fellow smiled, took a red cup next to her, and said to these people, "In this class I'll teach you how to identify colors." I said, "Remember, this color is green. We know this is green." After reaching the second level of fox hypnosis, the little fellow used her spiritual force. It didn't matter whether she spoke or not. Therefore, although these people did not understand Wuxia language, they could clearly understand the main meaning of the little fellow's expression. Tang Tang grabbed a green pen and said to these people with a smile, "Remember, this is red. We know this is red." The soldiers replied in unison. Chapter 760. The little fellow was very happy to be a teacher, but it was a pity that she was just in kindergarten and didn't know much in her mind. After giving some instructions, she had nothing to teach. What else should I teach? She patted her little head and thought for a while. Suddenly, she remembered the teacher's check mark and wrong mark. She picked up a pen and drew a big check mark on a piece of A4 paper next to her and said, "Let me tell you, this is called a wrong mark. There is no intersection. If you do the wrong question, you should put a wrong mark." As she taught, she imagined the scene of these people putting a check mark on the question that their children had done wrong. She couldn't help giggling. "We know this is a wrong mark." The little fellow drew another big cross and said, "This is called a check mark. If you do the question correctly, you should put a check mark." "We know this is called a check mark." Under the leadership of Jiro Ono, these people answered in an unusually loud voice. After teaching this, the little fellow really had nothing to teach, so she simply said, "Well, it's time for nap. You can all go to sleep." Seeing that these people were lying on the ground and sleeping, she walked out of the door with her little hands behind her back with satisfaction. Soon after she went out, she met another soldier. Under the control of fox hypnosis, the man directly took the little fellow out of the military base and then fell asleep under a big tree. Not far away, the little fellow saw a road. When a pickup truck passed by, she gently jumped into the back of the truck and sat in the truck to rush to the city. This pickup truck was to deliver goods to the supermarket. After arriving in the city, the little fellow jumped out of the truck and began to wander around looking for something she thought fun. After walking for a while, she felt a little hungry. She smelled the fragrance coming from a nearby restaurant and couldn't help drooling. Originally, if she used fox hypnosis, she could go in and eat casually, but her mother had told her that she had to pay for things. This idea was deeply rooted in her little head, so she didn't go in to eat but tried to get money. Not far away, she saw a bank on the side of the road and people came out with money one after another. She also went in and came to a window. The cashier in the bank suddenly saw a lovely little girl in front of him and said, "Little girl, do you want to withdraw money? Are your parents here?" The little fellow couldn't understand foreign language at all, so she directly used fox hypnosis to tell the other party that she wanted to withdraw money. The cashier was just an ordinary person. His mind was immediately controlled by his powerful mental power and he asked, "How much do you want to withdraw?" The little fellow still didn't understand what the other party was saying, but she knew that there must be a number to withdraw money. She thought about it and said casually, "Let's withdraw 20 million. She didn't have much of a concept before. She often followed Lin Momo and talked about tens of millions of transactions, so she said such a number. Fortunately, this was neon, and the largest denomination was 10,000 yuan. 20 million yuan was only 2,000 of them. If it was changed to Wuxia currency, 20 million yuan was a frightening amount. She couldn't take it away at all. After paying 20 million in cash, the cashier kindly put the money in a bag for her. The little fellow took the money and walked out of the bank, heading for the restaurant nearby. After entering, she didn't know how to order, so she casually pointed at the table next to her that looked very exquisite, then took out a handful of money and handed it to the waiter next to her. The waiter thought it was interesting to see a little girl eating. He gave her the extra money and then brought a sushi to her. The little fellow tasted it and thought it tasted good. Then she ate it in big mouthfuls. While she was eating happily, Qin Haodong, Lin Momo, and the others were anxious. Originally, these saints could fly, but the distance between Wuxia and Neon was not close. If they flew here, it would consume a lot of energy and they couldn't face unknown dangers. Therefore, Qin Haodong chose to take everyone here by plane. When they arrived near Neon, they directly opened the cabin door and jumped out. The plane flew back to Wuxia. On the plane, Qin Haodong had already made arrangements. He, Xinyuan Ligay, and Lin Momo formed a group and went straight to Chiba Island according to the other party's instructions on the phone. The others scattered and searched for the little fellow's whereabouts throughout Neon. Qin Haodong didn't show his strength. He and Lin Momo were carried by Xinyuan Ligay and flew in the direction of Chiba Island. At this time they had already entered the territory of Neon. The scene of them getting off the plane clearly appeared on a big screen. Oh my god, what did I see? In front of the big screen, a middle-aged man wearing the badge of a senior officer jumped up. His name was Yama Sato, a direct descendant of the Neon Sato family and one of the participants in this plan. He was responsible for monitoring the movements of Wuxia. As a direct descendant of the Sato family, he knew the existence of the saints. He had also seen the scene of Kishi Sato, the head of the family, flying in the air. He knew that this was the unique ability of the saints. However, the sudden appearance of so many saints in front of him scared him out of his wits. He quickly picked up his mobile phone and dialed a phone number. Chiba Island was a small island 50 kilometers away from the Neon mainland. It was not large, about 1 square kilometer. It didn't have a name before. Later it was occupied by the Chiba family and named Chiba Island. In the middle of the island, Yagyu Yukaim was tied to a coconut tree. At this time, her cultivation had been sealed, so she was no different from an ordinary person. Her white skin was covered with a pink halo under the scorching sun. On the reef not far from her, 3 old men in kimonos were sitting cross-legged. The one sitting in the middle was Kyo Chiba, the sage of sword. On his left was Kishi Sato, the head of the Sato family, and on his right was Takeda Inamoto, the head of the Inamoto family. Although Yagyu Yukaim's family was huge, it could only be considered a second-class family in the whole Neon. She had won this status after becoming a 9th-level Supreme Power Master. Previously she could only be regarded as a 3rd-class family. The 3 old men in front of her were the 3 saints of Neon. At the same time they represented the top 3 families in Neon, the Chiba family, the Sato family, and the Inamoto family. Kishi Sato said to Kyo Chiba, "Brother Sage of Sword, the dead can't come back to life. It's really sad that Mieko died young, but you'd better restrain your grief." Takeda Inamoto also said, "Yes, we'll kill Qin Haodong later and use his head as a sacrifice to Mieko's soul in heaven." Kyo Chiba sighed and said, "When Mieko was born, a master told her that she couldn't practice martial arts in this life and that she couldn't use the chi of gold and iron. Unexpectedly, after the child was born, she didn't listen to the advice and insisted on practicing martial arts. As a result, she died in a foreign place." Kishi Sato said, "In fact, you care too much about this matter. If you had taught Mieko personally since she was a child, she would have become a Supreme Power Master long ago. Maybe there would be no disaster today." Kyo Chiba shook his head and said, "You still don't know anything. That boy surnamed Qin is simply a monster. He has already reached the 9th-level Supreme Power realm at the age of 20. Even if Mieko was personally taught by me, she wouldn't be able to reach his level." After hearing this, both of them widened their eyes. Takeda Inamoto said, "A 20-year-old 9th-level Supreme Power Master? How could that be? If he grows up for a few more years, won't he be invincible?" Kyo Chiba said, "It's because of this that I set up today's trap. I must get rid of this boy surnamed Qin. At the same time, the Xinyuan Pavilion is a great threat to our country. When the time comes, the 3 of us will kill Xinyuan Ligay together. It can be regarded as removing a great threat for our descendants." Kishi Sato said, "Brother Sword Sage, don't worry. We will definitely work together with you to kill Xinyuan Ligay." "Bah! You 3 old B***stards want to kill my master? You're daydreaming." Yagyu Yukaim was not far from the 3 of them, so she heard their conversation clearly. She couldn't help shouting, "When my master comes, you 3 old B***stards will all go to heaven. B***stard, you shameless thing." Kyo Chiba shouted angrily, "You killed the former master of the Yagyu family. I won't argue with you. But you have no sense of shame. How dare you recognize a Wuxia man as your master? This is a disgrace to our country. From now on, your Yagyu family will be erased from Neon. Kyo Chiba, if you have the ability, fight with my master fair and square. It's shameful for you to do such a sneaky thing. B***starred, I'll kill you now." Kishi Sato was furious. He turned around and pulled out his knife, about to attack Yagyu Yukaim. However, Kyo Chiba raised his hand to stop him. "Master Sato, don't fall into this B***tch's trap. She just wants to provoke us to kill her so that Qin Haodong will have nothing to worry about. B***tch, I'll kill you later." Kishi Sato angrily withdrew his knife. At this time, Kyo Chiba's cell phone rang. He usually didn't use this kind of thing. In order to set up a trap this time, he had specially prepared a cell phone to contact the military headquarters of Neon. The call was from Yamasato. When he heard that there were 11 saint-level masters from Wuxia, his face suddenly became extremely ugly. This time, Qin Haodong was not considered as his opponent at all. His only opponent was Xinyuan Ligay. In his opinion, it would not be a problem to kill Xinyuan Ligay with the combined strength of him, Kishisato and Takeda Inamoto. But now there were 10 more saint-level masters, which completely lost the hope of winning. As the sword sage with the highest cultivation in Neon, he did not panic too much. He continued to ask, how did these people act? Where are they now? When he heard that the others had scattered to all parts of Neon, and only Xinyuan Ligay had rushed over with Qin Haodong and another woman, he breathed a sigh of relief. Although the situation had changed, it did not completely deviate from his plan. With the strength of the 3 saints, they could still kill Xinyuan Ligay. After thinking for a while, he took out his mobile phone and dialed Awa Miura's number. Make arrangements now and prepare the firepower immediately. Once the situation on my side changes, immediately concentrate the firepower to destroy the entire Chiba Island. In case of any accidents, this was the final plan he had made with the military. Once they failed, the military would concentrate all the firepower in the underground military base and wipe out Chiba Island in one fell swoop. Awa Miura was one of Kyo Chiba's most loyal subordinates and also the representative of the Chiba family in the military. After hearing Kyo Chiba's order, he was silent for a moment and said in a low voice, "Your Excellency, do we really have to do that?" Kyo Chiba said, "The strength of the enemy is far beyond our imagination. We have to be fully prepared. This time, we must kill Xinyuan Ligay and Qin Haodong completely and get rid of the big trouble for our empire." Chapter 761. Awa Miura said anxiously, "But, Sword Sage, according to the intensity of the firepower we've arranged, the entire Chiba Island will be destroyed once it's activated. Even a saint-level expert can't survive. You, Kishisato, and Takeda Inamoto won't be spared. Why don't we think of another way?" Kyo Chiba said resolutely, "Awa Miura, don't talk nonsense. Don't I know the firepower network I've set up? Our goal is to kill the saint from Wuxia. For the interests of the empire, it's not a big deal for our family to make some sacrifices. Even if the 3 of us die, the foundation of the aristocratic family is still there. The new forces like you are still there, and there will be countless saint experts in the future." Although the 2 of them were on the phone, Awa Miura still gave a military salute and said loudly, "I see, Sword Sage. Thank you and the other 2 masters for your sacrifice for the empire." Kyo Chiba sighed and said in a low voice, "Well, let's carry out the previous plan as soon as possible." Awa Miura said, "Sword Sage, the launch button of the firepower network has been wirelessly connected to the switch in your hand. Now I'll send the attack map to the fire control center. 5 minutes later, as long as you press the switch, the entire Chiba Island will be covered by the dense firepower network. At that time, even a mosquito will not be able to survive." Jiro Ono was sleeping soundly on the ground. Suddenly he was awakened by a harsh ringing of the phone. He quickly jumped up and picked up the phone. "Ono, what are you doing? Why did you answer the phone after so long?" Awa Miura said with great dissatisfaction on the other side of the phone. "I'm sorry, General. I just went to the bathroom." Jiro Ono did not dare to tell the truth. Otherwise, if Awa Miura found out that he had fallen asleep on duty, he would definitely skin him alive. Thinking that his master was about to die for the country, Awa Miura was in a bad mood. He did not continue to pay attention to this matter, but said in a heavy voice, "I've sent an attack map to the fire control center. We'll arrange the firepower immediately." For this plan, the Chiba family had made precise preparations and kept it a secret. A junior officer like Jiro Ono had no right to know their plan. Jiro Ono hurriedly said, "Got it, sir? I'll do it right away." After that, he immediately received the fire attack map sent by Awa Miura and said, "Sir, the map has been successfully received. Please continue to give orders." Awa Miura said, "I've marked the target on the map. The one with the red cross is our target. You can adjust all the firepower there now. You don't have to worry about anything else." "Understood, sir." Jiro Ono agreed and looked at the map. He saw that the 3 big red crosses were the headquarters of the Japanese Chiba family, the Sato family, and the Inamoto family. It turned out that the 3 families had a very high status in Neon. Normally, it was an absolute military restricted area. Even basic military training had to be avoided. No plane was allowed to fly over the 3 families. In order to prevent accidents from happening, the military had marked these 3 big families on the map. The markings were 3 green check marks. Jiro Ono had just been educated by the little fellow, and the power of the fox hypnosis had not ended yet. So in his eyes the green check mark was a red cross, which became the target of the firepower. The Chiba Island, which had been marked as a big red cross, had become a green check mark in his eyes at this time. He exclaimed, "Sir, what's going on? The target of our attack is the Chiba family." Awa Miura did not know that Jiro Ono had been completely confused by the little fellow. He thought that he wanted to say that the target of the attack was the Chiba family's Chiba Island. He immediately said angrily, "Ono, have you forgotten your duty as a soldier? You just need to obey orders. Don't talk so much nonsense." After reprimanding him, he felt endless sadness when he thought of the 3 saints who were about to die for the country. "No, Kun, this time the 3 families have made great sacrifices for the interests of the empire. Let's pay tribute to them together." "Got it, sir." Jiro Ono gave a military salute, and his heart was filled with endless reverence. The 3 families were indeed the pillars of the country. For the interests of the empire and to annihilate the enemy, they had even sacrificed their own homes. This kind of sacrifice was really admirable. After hanging up the phone, he immediately kicked all his other men awake. He thought to himself that they could no longer watch domestic action movies when they were on duty in the future. Otherwise, they would consume too much physical strength and fall asleep all of a sudden. After these people got up, they immediately gave orders and aimed all the firepower of the entire underground military center at the nests of the Chiba family, the Inamoto family, and the Sato family. A soldier checked the map and felt that there was something wrong with the target of the attack. He mentioned it to Jiro Ono, but before he could finish his words, he was kicked to the ground by Jiro Ono. "As a soldier, have you forgotten your duty? You just need to carry out the order." He glanced at his men and said with reverence, "For the interests of the empire, our 3 great families have made great sacrifices. Let's salute them together." The soldiers seemed to understand something. They immediately stood up straight and gave a military salute to the 3 attack points on the big screen. Although the soldier who had been kicked down still had doubts in his heart, he did not dare to say anything. He quickly got up from the ground and gave a standard military salute like everyone else. In another room, Koji Honda was awakened by a rapid ringing of the phone. He hurriedly got up and picked up his mobile phone. When he saw that it was a call from his commanding officer Awa Miura, he immediately pressed the answer button. "What are you doing? Why are you so slow to answer the phone?" Awa Miura was furious. "What's wrong with my men? They were too slow to answer the phone." Jiro Ono was slow and Koji Honda was even slower. Did they look like soldiers at all? Seeing that his commanding officer was angry, Koji Honda hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, sir. I went to the bathroom just now." Time was running out, so Awa Miura was too lazy to pay attention to these lame excuses. He asked, "Where's the little girl?" "Don't worry, sir. She's tied up here." Speaking of this, Koji Honda suddenly felt like a rooster whose neck had been grabbed. Looking at the rope thrown on the ground beside him, he could not continue to speak. Awa Miura did not feel that something was wrong. He continued, "Send the little girl to Chiba Island right now. Be fast." Koji Honda walked around the room and made sure that there was no sign of the little fellow. He swallowed hard and said with difficulty, Sir, that little girl ran away." "Bastard, you bastard. What are you doing? You can't even keep an eye on a child. What else can you do?" Hearing that the little fellow had run away, Awa Miura immediately flew into a rage. "Tell me, how did she run away?" Koji Honda's mind went blank. He stammered, I don't know, bastard, if you delay the Empire's important affairs, I'll cut off your head." After cursing, Awa Miura hung up the phone and hurriedly called Kyo Chiba. "Master Sword Sage, I'm sorry. The little girl ran away just now." "Ran away? Isn't she a child of 3 or 4 years old? How could she run out of the underground base?" Awa Miura said, "My men are incompetent and failed to fulfill their responsibilities. Please punish me, Master Sword Sage." "Forget it. Anyway, Qin Haodong and Xinyuan Ligay have already come to Neon. It's not necessary for her to exist." Awa Miura said, "Do you want me to send someone to catch her?" Kyo Chiba said, "There's no need to make a big fuss. She's just a child. If we make too much noise, we may alarm Qin Haodong. It's not worth it. I guess it won't be long before they arrive. Is the firepower ready?" Awa Miura said, "Don't worry, Master Sword Sage. Everything is ready. Now the firepower of the entire underground military base is under your control. As long as you press the control switch, thousands of cannons will be fired at once and the entire Chiba Island will be blown up." Kyo Chiba said, that's enough. I have a hunch that they will be here soon. The little fellow was very happy eating in the sushi restaurant and soon finished a serving of sushi. She casually took out a few high-denomination coins from the bag next to her, asked the waiter next to her for another serving, and then began to eat happily. Outside the sushi restaurant, there were 7 or 8 gangsters dressed like rascals staring at the little fellow in the restaurant through the spacious and bright glass window. A gangster with a hippie hairstyle said to a leader with a nose ring next to him, "Boss, this little girl has a lot of money in her hands. It's obvious that she comes from a rich family. If we catch her, we can definitely make a lot of money." Another yellow-haired gangster followed and said, "Yes, boss, and it's very easy to do. I've been observing for a long time. This little girl ran out by herself. There are no adults around her at all. It's easy for us to catch her." The leader of the gangsters thought for a moment and said, "You're right. This is a big deal. It seems that we're lucky today. But this is the downtown area and there are too many people. We might attract the police, so we have to use our wits instead of violence." The hippie said, "Boss is right. We have to use our wits. But I just saw that this little girl seems to be from Wuxia. She doesn't understand our language, so it's very difficult to deceive her." The yellow-haired gangster said, "It doesn't matter. I've stayed in Wuxia for a few years and know Wuxia language. At least there's no problem communicating with her." The leader of the gangsters said, "Well, I'll leave this task to you. Later you'll trick the little girl here. As long as you succeed, you'll be rewarded heavily." The yellow-haired gangster said, "Don't worry, boss. I'm best at deceiving children." After the little fellow was full, she walked out of the sushi restaurant with the money bag in her hand. Not long after she walked out, the yellow-haired gangster ran up to her. First, he gave her a lollipop and then said, "Little sister, I'll take you to a fun place, okay?" "Okay, I was worried that I couldn't find a fun place." The little fellow agreed without hesitation. Since it was so easy to succeed, the yellow-haired gangster was ecstatic. He picked up the little fellow and walked to a remote park. The leader of the gangsters followed them closely. When they came to a corner of the park, the yellow-haired gangster looked around and saw that there was no one around. He put the little fellow on a bench, and the leader of the gangsters also surrounded them. Seeing so many people, the little fellow was not afraid at all. While eating the lollipop, she said to the yellow-haired gangster, "Where's the fun thing?" Chapter 762. The gangster leader came over arrogantly and shouted to the little fellow, "Little girl, we're robbing you, you know? Hand over the money in your hand and ask your family to send us $10 million. After that, he looked at the cute little fellow and remembered that she was a Wuxia little girl who didn't understand Japanese at all. He said to the yellow-haired boy next to him, "Hurry up and translate it for me." The yellow-haired boy quickly translated it and said to the little fellow, "Did you hear that? Our boss is robbing you. Hurry up and hand over the money." Robbing? It's fun. Hearing that these people were going to rob her, the little fellow did not feel afraid. On the contrary, she jumped up happily, then put her hands on her hips and said to the gangster leader in an aggressive manner, "Hurry up and hand over all your money." The gangster leader was angry for a moment and said with annoyance, "Little girl, I'm not playing games with you. Hurry up and give me the money or you'll suffer." The little fellow also followed and said, "Hurry up and give me the money or you'll suffer." The gangster leader was completely angry. He waved his hand behind him and said, "Go and get the money first." The little fellow also cried, "Go and get the money." "Little girl, you're really naughty. It seems that I have to teach you a lesson." As soon as the leader of the gangsters said that, he saw a group of underlings pouncing on him. The punk rushed to the front and kicked him to the ground. Then, everyone punched and kicked him, beating him like a sandbag. "You're F***king crazy. I'm your boss. How dare you hit me? Don't you want to live?" The leader of the gangsters was shouting, but he was kicked hard in the mouth by a big foot. Several of his teeth were kicked out. This time he didn't dare to shout anymore. He held his head with both hands and lay on the ground to be beaten. The little fellow jumped up happily and shouted happily while eating a lollipop, "Teach him a lesson. Hit him hard." Hearing her order, these gangsters beat him harder. The gangster leader kept rolling on the ground, wailing, and his head had been beaten into a pig's head. 2 minutes later, the fight was almost over. The yellow-haired gangster searched the gangster leader's wallet and bank cards, and then respectfully handed them to Tang Tang. "Big sister, this is your money." "Not bad, I'll buy you some candy later," Tang Tang said like a big sister on TV. However, she felt that this was not very fun, so she removed the fox hypnosis from the gangsters. The punk came to his senses and saw a pig head suddenly appear next to him. He exclaimed, "Who the fuck are you? What are you doing here?" The leader of the hooligans was full of anger. He slapped him in the face. "Bastard, I'm your boss." The punk covered his mouth and exclaimed, "Boss, how did you become like this? Motherf***ker, it's all your fault." After saying that, the leader kicked the punk's stomach hard. Then, he pointed at the pile of money in front of the little fellow and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and grab the money for me." The other gangsters came to their senses and rushed up to snatch the money in front of the little fellow. But after running a few steps, these people turned around and ran away again. Once again, the leader of the gangsters was pressed to the ground and beaten again. "Let go. Let go of me," the leader of the gangsters shouted desperately. But just like last time, no matter what he said, these people were like crazy, punching and kicking him constantly. A few minutes later, the punk and the others came to their senses. Seeing that they had beaten their boss again, these people were stunned and retreated one after another. The leader of the gangsters got up from the ground. His nose and mouth were covered with blood, his head was swollen like a pig's head, and his whole body was in pain. "Bastards, I'm going to kill you." He was about to go mad with anger. Was there a more miserable boss than him? He had been beaten by his own men twice. Boss, don't be angry. Listen to me." The yellow-haired gangster was the first to come to his senses. He said to the leader of the gangsters, "Boss, I feel that this little girl is very strange. We couldn't control ourselves at all just now." Hearing what he said, the punk and the others also shouted, "Yes, boss. She seems to be able to control us. We have to do whatever she wants us to do." The leader of the gangsters had already felt that something was wrong. This time, the target of the robbery seemed to have chosen the wrong one. It was a little demon girl. He made a prompt decision and said, "Then what are you waiting for? Run." But as soon as he turned around, he was kicked to the ground by the punk before he could run 2 steps. Then he was beaten again. The leader of the gangsters cried completely. He had been beaten 3 times in such a short time. How could he live like this? "Well, stop." The little fellow stood on the bench. After she gave the order, the gangsters all stopped. "From now on, I'm your big sister. You have to listen to me and play with me." Looking at the pink and tender little girl in front of them, the eyes of the gangsters were full of fear. Demon girl, she was a demon girl. They thought so, but they didn't dare to show anything on the surface. After all, the example of the leader of the gangsters was right there. No one wanted to be beaten for no reason. "Yes, big sister, we'll listen to you." Although it was extremely difficult to say this, the leader of the gangsters still shouted in unison. But there were also some who didn't believe it. A little tattooed gangster turned around and ran away. He thought to himself, "I can't afford to offend you, but can't I run away? Let's see what else you can do." But he didn't expect that before he ran far, he suddenly lost control of his body and ran back obediently. The little fellow jumped and said, "Disobedient children need to be punished. Beat him for me." So the scene just now happened again, but this time, it was not the leader of the gangsters who was beaten, but the tattooed gangster. A few minutes later, a group of big men stood respectfully in front of a little girl. The scene looked a little strange. In addition to the leader of the gangsters, there was another pig head in the crowd. With the lesson learned from the tattooed gangster, the others no longer dared to act rashly. Although they all had all kinds of bad ideas in their hearts, they were more obedient than kindergarten children on the surface. This little demon girl was so evil that ordinary people couldn't compete with her at all. The little girl stretched out her white and tender little hand, pointed to the punk and cried, "Come here and be my horse." The punk was suddenly dumbfounded and said with a bitter face, "Big sister, why me?" The little fellow said with a smile, "Because your hair looks more like a horse, so you'll be my horse." At this moment, the punk hated his hair shape to death. He swore in his heart that as long as he got rid of this little demon girl, he would immediately shave his head and never have a punk face in his life. But although he thought about it and swore, he still had to be a horse. He came to the little fellow respectfully and lay on the ground like a horse. The little fellow jumped on his back, grabbed his hair with her left hand and patted his butt with her right hand. "Go run. Run. You're too slow. You're not as fast as Damao." The poor punk was already panting and sweating after running a few laps. His palms and knees had been rubbed by the stones. He fell to the ground with a plop and couldn't get up again. "You're so useless. I haven't had enough fun yet." The little fellow turned to look at the yellow-haired gangster and said, "Come here and continue to be my horse." On Chiba Island, Xianyuan Ligay landed on the island with Qin Haodong and Lin Momo after flying for a while. As soon as they landed on the island, Kyo Chiba, Kishisato, and Takeda Inamoto surrounded Xianyuan Ligay. As for Qin Haodong and Lin Momo, they didn't take them seriously at all. This was a deserted island with strong winds and waves, and there were no ships around. If they were not saints, they would not be able to leave this place at all. As long as they killed Xinyuan Ligay, the rest of them would be meat on the chopping board. They could chop them up however they wanted. Qin Haodong strode to Yagyu Yukaim and raised his hand to break the rope on her body. With the greenwood genuine chi, he instantly broke the restriction on her body. "Are you hurt? Are you okay?" Yagyu Yukaim said anxiously. "I'm fine. Master, you should leave quickly. This is a trap." Qin Haodong patted her on the shoulder and comforted her. "Don't worry. I'm here." He turned around and said to Kyo Chiba, "Where's my daughter?" Kyo Chiba sneered and said, "You're going to die. Why are you looking for your daughter? When you die, I'll let her be buried with you." After that, he shouted to Kishi Sato and Takeda Inamoto, "A long delay is fraught with trouble. Hurry up and kill Xinyuan Ligay first." After that, he pulled out the long sword on his back, and a sharp sword chi pressed down on Xinyuan Ligay. Kishi Sato and Takeda Inamoto also pulled out their own swords and surrounded Xinyuan Ligay in a triangle with Kyo Chiba. Under the operation of the genuine chi, the swords in their hands emitted extremely sharp sword chi. Xinyuan Ligay didn't even pull out her long sword. She looked at the three of them and sneered. At this point, how could she not see through Kyo Chiba's trick? Before she met the Sacred Lord, she really couldn't compete with the three saints. Even if she could escape, she would inevitably be seriously injured. But now she had met the Sacred Lord. With the help of Qin Haodong's elixir, she had reached the middle stage of the Saint Realm. The three saints in front of her could not compete with her. She put her hands behind her back and said domineeringly, "Do the three of you really think you can hurt me? Xinyuan Ligay, don't pretend. Go to hell." After Kyo Chiba finished speaking, the long sword in his hand turned into a thunderbolt and directly slashed at Xinyuan Ligay's face. Kishi Sato and Takeda Inamoto had worked with Kyo Chiba for many years, so they had a tacit understanding with each other. The moment Kyo Chiba attacked, the swords in their hands also moved. The sword light and Kyo Chiba's sword chi merged into one, covering the whole world, leaving no gap. If Xinyuan Ligay was still at the early stage of the Saint Realm, she would have been seriously injured by this blow. Xinyuan Ligay smiled slightly and suddenly waved her sleeves outward. There was a huge gap between the early stage of the Saint Realm and the middle stage of the Saint Realm. With such a gentle movement, the three experts of Neon were sent flying backward like kites with broken strings. They began to vomit blood in the air. She had shown mercy. If it hadn't been for the sake of finding the whereabouts of the little fellow, the three of them would have killed the three old Neon masters. Kyo Chiba fell to the ground with a thud. After spitting out a few more mouthfuls of blood, he cried out in horror, "The middle stage of the Saint Realm. You actually broke through to the middle stage of the Saint Realm?" Xinyuan Ligay smiled slightly and said, "How is it? You didn't expect it, did you? Hurry up and hand me over and I can spare your life." Kyo Chiba said with a sad face, "I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. I've worked hard all my life, but I haven't been able to reach the middle stage of the Saint Realm. You actually broke through at such a young age. Why? Why is God so unfair to me?" Adding more chapters for Fat Cat Rolling. Chapter 763. Xinyuan Ligay sighed with emotion in her heart. It was too difficult to break through from the early stage of the Saint Realm to the middle stage. If she hadn't met the Sacred Master, she wouldn't have had her current cultivation. It could be said that everything in the Zihang Sword House was thanks to the Sacred Master. Qin Haodong didn't care about this. The most urgent thing now was to find his daughter. He walked up to Kyo Chiba and said coldly, "Old man, where is my daughter? Hand her over." "Well, I'll tell you now." Kyo Chiba suddenly rose into the air and stretched out two big hands like ghost claws to grab Qin Haodong's neck. He was indeed injured just now, but he was a strong man who had failed to break through to the middle stage of the Saint Realm. In terms of cultivation, he was much stronger than Kishi Sato and Takeda Inamoto, so his injury was not as serious as it seemed. The reason why he had pretended to be pitiful just now was to distract Xinyuan Ligay. Although he was injured, Qin Haodong was only a 9th-level Supreme Power Master. After all, he couldn't compete with a saint. As long as he deceived Xinyuan Ligay, he could succeed. He had already seen the importance of this young man to Xinyuan Ligay. As long as he took Qin Haodong hostage, there was still a chance to turn things around. It had to be said that he was indeed very scheming. Xinyuan Ligay had also been deceived. When she came to her senses and wanted to rescue him, it was too late. Seeing that Qin Haodong was about to fall into his hands, Kyo Chiba sneered. Although he had made the final arrangement, no one wanted to pay the price with their lives unless they had to. But at this moment, a huge foot appeared in front of him. Then his face seemed to have been hit by a train, and his whole body flew backward in the air. After being kicked away, Kyochiba fell to the ground and spat out mouthfuls of blood. This time he was not pretending. Qin Haodong's kick was really so heavy that his internal organs were almost displaced. You. He got up from the ground and looked at Qin Haodong in horror. The kick just now had fully demonstrated his strength. The young man in front of him was also a saint-level master, and he was extremely powerful. Compared with Xinyuan Ligay, who had broken through to the middle stage of the saint realm, Qin Haodong shocked him even more. It was impossible to predict what a 20-year-old saint would grow into in the future. Kishi Sato and Inamoto Aodie, who were paralyzed next to him, were also stunned. They had originally planned to surround Xinyuan Ligay with 3 people. However, they didn't expect that there would be 2 saints. However, they didn't have the strength to let the other one make a move. Xinyuan Ligay alone killed all 3 of them. Xinyuan Ligay was nervous at first, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. She was also quite shocked. After all, she was the sacred lord in the ancestral home, and her cultivation speed was much faster than that of ordinary people. Qin Haodong said to Kyochiba, "You're right. I'm also a saint, so don't have any illusions. Give my daughter back to me as soon as possible, and I can consider sparing your life." "Ah, a 20-year-old saint is indeed amazing. That's why I can't let you live. Otherwise you'll become a great threat to the Neon Nation." Chiba struggled to sit up from the ground and took out a small thing made of fine steel from his pocket. There was a red button on it. It was the button of the fire control system of the underground military base. As long as he pressed the red button, all kinds of large weapons that had been loaded would be fully fired. He was completely desperate now. Without any hesitation he pressed the red button hard. Qin Haodong, Xinyuan Ligay and the others all felt that something was wrong, but it was too late to stop him. In an instant they all raised their genuine qi to the extreme and were on guard to prevent any accidents. Xinyuan Ligay had even grabbed the belts of Lin Momo and Yagi Yukaim, ready to jump into the air at any time. At this moment the evening sky suddenly lit up. The scene of tens of thousands of cannons firing at the same time was extremely spectacular. Countless cannonballs whistled into the sky, like shining meteors, which looked extremely bright. Seeing that the fire control system of the underground base had been activated, Kyochiba breathed a sigh of relief at first, and then his eyes suddenly widened. He found that the cannonballs did not fly to Chiba Island, but to 3 different directions in Neon, which happened to be the lair of the Chiba family, the Sato family, and the Inamoto family. Then there was an earth-shattering explosion. Although it was still far away, they still felt the vibration of the ground. Seeing such dense firepower, Qin Haodong and Xinyuan Ligay were both scared out of their wits. Although they had reached the Saint Realm, if these cannonballs were to explode here, they would only be blown into ashes. After the shock they were extremely confused. On the plain, they had studied the strength of Neon in detail and knew the distribution of the 3 great families like the back of their hands. These cannonballs happened to be flying toward the 3 great families. Under such a dense attack, no matter how strong the 3 great families were and how many masters they had, it was impossible for them to survive. Everyone could see that all this was caused by Kyochiba. What was going on? What was he going to do? Qin Haodong turned around and said, "Old man, who are you trying to scare by hurting yourself?" "Hurting myself?" Kyochiba realized that he had destroyed the Chiba family with his own hands, as well as the Sato family and the Inamoto family. Before he made this plan to die together with them, he was still very calm because even if the 3 of them died, the strength of the 3 great families was still there, and Neon could still rise in the future. But now everything had changed. For some reason, the damn underground base had destroyed the 3 families. What hope did they have in the future? Thinking of this, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood again. He fell to the ground with a plop and fainted. Kishi Sato and Inamoto Aoda's lifelong efforts, relatives and descendants were all in their family base. Now seeing their family being destroyed, their eyes suddenly turned red. They jumped up like crazy and rushed to Kyochiba, who had fainted. "Bastard, is this your perfect plan? How dare you destroy my family? I'll fight you to the death." The 2 of them punched and kicked Kyochiba. Fortunately, they were seriously injured and could not raise their cultivation. Otherwise they could have smashed Kyochiba with one palm. Kyochiba woke up from his coma. At this time, he had lost his mind and immediately fought with the 2 of them to vent his anger. "That's enough." Qin Haodong kicked the 3 of them away and said coldly, "I don't have time to waste with you. Hand over my daughter as soon as possible." Kishi Sato got up from the ground and looked at Qin Haodong with a crazy expression. He shouted, "My family is gone. What hope do I have to live on? Kill me. Then go to hell. Qin Haodong raised his hand and waved. The Xian Yuan sword directly cut off Kishisato's neck, and blood spurted out. The three of them were all saint-level masters with strong spiritual power, so he did not dare to use mind manipulating at will. He could only interrogate them in this way. Perhaps the death of their companion stimulated the nerves of the other two people. Kyo Chiba and Takeda Inamoto immediately calmed down a lot. Qin Haodong put the Xian Yuan sword on Kyo Chiba's neck and said, "Tell me, where's my daughter?" In the park, the little fellow was having a good time. She rode on a group of gangsters one by one. In the end, these people couldn't crawl anymore. She returned to the bench, pointed at the leader of the gangsters and said, "Dance for me." The leader of the gangsters said with a painful expression, "Big sister, I really don't know how to dance. Please spare me." He was so regretful now. If he had known this would happen, he would not have kidnapped this little witch. Wasn't he courting death? The little fellow waved her hand and said, "You don't know how to dance, do you? Beat him." Hearing that he was going to be beaten again, the leader of the gangsters was completely scared. If he continued to be beaten like this, he would definitely be beaten to death. He hurriedly shouted, "I can dance. I can dance. Big sister, what kind of dance do you want to see?" The little fellow said, "Just dance a duckling for me." The leader of the gangsters didn't know how to dance. He would just twist a few times in the bar and dance hall. At this time, when he heard the little fellow order a duckling, he immediately said with a bitter face, "Big sister, why don't you call the police? Don't torture me. We'll admit to kidnapping and let the police take us away, okay?" The little fellow said, "No, you haven't danced for me yet. Even if you call the police, you have to wait until I've seen enough of your dance." The leader of the gangsters had a helpless look on his face. He had no choice but to jump up. He didn't know how to dance a duck, so he could only learn to walk like a duck and make a duck's cry. Seeing this scene, the little fellow giggled and barely managed to get away with it. The leader of the gangsters breathed a sigh of relief. There was really no one else who could be as good as him. At this time, he hated the adults in the child's family. Why didn't they keep an eye on such a little witch and let her run out to hurt people? Yen Feifei, Feng Wu, and other saint-level experts began to search the entire Neon. Fortunately, the area was not too large. The 10 saints divided into different areas and soon searched most of the area. Hu Shaoxian was in charge of the northern Sichuan line. She was flying in the sky when she suddenly felt the breath of the little fellow. She immediately flew in the direction of the park. When she landed in the park, the little fellow was sitting on a bench, eating a lollipop and watching the leader of the gangsters dance. She giggled from time to time and did not look like she had been kidnapped at all. Hu Shaoxian breathed a sigh of relief. She finally found the girl. She walked over and said, "Tang Tang, what are you doing?" When the little fellow saw Hu Shaoxian, she cried out excitedly, "Auntie Shaoxian, look, this person's dance is so ugly." Seeing that the little witch's family had finally arrived, the leader of the gangsters was so excited that he burst into tears. He threw himself in front of Hu Shaoxian, hugged her feet and cried, "Miss, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kidnapped your daughter. Please call the police. I can't stand it anymore." Hu Shaoxian was shocked and kicked the guy away. Then she said to the little fellow, "Tang Tang, what did you do to him?" The little fellow said innocently, "Nothing. They said they would take me here to have fun, so I played games with them." When Hu Shaoxian was about to say something, the sky was suddenly filled with countless cannonballs. The flashes illuminated the night sky, followed by a violent explosion. The ground under their feet began to tremble violently. Looking at the shining night sky, the little fellow cried out excitedly, "Auntie Shaoxian, who set off these fireworks? They are so beautiful." As a member of the Xinyuan Pavilion, Hu Shaoxian naturally knew what was going on. This was not fireworks at all but a large area of firepower. Was there a war in Neon? Thinking of this, she did not dare to stay any longer. If this place was also covered by firepower, it would be too dangerous. She quickly picked up the little fellow and rose into the air. Then she shot a signal flare into the night sky. This was what they had agreed before. No matter who found Tang Tang, they had to send a signal to the sky so that everyone could gather quickly. Chapter 764. Seeing that Hu Shaoxian had taken the little fellow away, the leader of the gangsters and his men knelt on the ground with a plop and kept kowtowing to the sky. In their eyes, she was a living bodhisattva who had come to save them. She had taken away the little monster who had tortured people to death. On Chiba Island, Qin Haodong was thinking about how to ask the two old men about Tang Tang's whereabouts when he suddenly saw a signal rising in the distance. Since his people had found the little fellow, there was no need to talk nonsense with these two old men. With a slight shake of his wrist, the Xianyuan sword instantly pierced the throats of Kyo Chiba and Takeda Inamoto. Although it was better to have more masters to fight against the alien demons, it was better not to have such an ally who could stab him in the back at any time. After killing the three people, he gently waved his sleeve and an invisible force carried the bodies of Kyo Chiba, Takeda Inamoto and Kishisato into the sea. The three Saint Realm masters who had once been famous in Neon ended up being fed to the fish in the sea because of a wrong decision. After solving the trouble here, Qin Haodong said to Yagyu Yukaim, "Will you go to Wuxia with me?" Yagyu Yukaim hesitated for a moment and finally shook her head. "After I'm caught, the Chiba family will definitely plot to annex the Yagyu family. There are still many people loyal to me there. I can't leave them alone. Moreover, if I stay in Neon I can accumulate more strength for my master." Qin Haodong said, "But won't you be in danger after these three people died?" Yagyu Yukaim shook her head and said, "It would be troublesome if they were alive. Now that they are dead, the highest cultivation in the whole Neon is the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm. I have nothing to be afraid of." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Well, I'll send you back now. If there's any danger, send me a message immediately." He asked Xinyuan Ligay to take Lin Momo to meet the little fellow first, and then he would arrive later. Then he stepped on the Xinyuan sword with Yagyu Yukaim and flew toward the Yagyu family like a meteor. Seeing that Qin Haodong was even faster than her, Xinyuan Ligay secretly admired him. The sacred master was indeed the sacred master. He could actually fly on a sword. After sighing, she took Lin Momo to the direction of Hu Xiaoxian's signal. In the Yagyu family, Yagyu Shiro was arrogantly admonishing the people of the Yagyu family with his saber on his back. "I'm telling you, Yagyu Yukaim must die. You either submit to our Chiba family or die. From now on, the Yagyu family will no longer exist." At that moment, a cold shout came from behind the door. "Who dares to boast shamelessly about destroying the Yagyu family?" As soon as she finished speaking, Qin Haodong and Yagyu Yukaim walked in from outside. After seeing Yagyu Yukaim, the depressed Yagyu family members immediately became excited. Since the family master had returned, it meant that there was still hope for the Yagyu family. After Qin Haodong entered the door, he immediately felt the aura of the little fellow from Shiro Chiba. Although it was very weak, it still could not escape the perception of his spirit. "Did you steal my daughter?" Seeing Yagyu Yukaim enter the door, Shiro Chiba was shocked, but he was not too panicked. Both of them were level 9 Supreme Power Masters, and the gap in their cultivation was not too big. But after recognizing Qin Haodong he completely panicked. He was very clear about Kyo Chiba's plan. Since the family master had already set up a plan to kill him, how could this Wuxia man still be standing here alive? Because this place was far away from Chiba Island, he did not hear the movement over there, so he did not know what had happened. "Yo, why are you here? Where's our family master?" "Do you mean Kyo Chiba? I'll send you to see him now." After Qin Haodong finished speaking, a golden light flashed, and the Xianyuan sword instantly pierced through Shiro Chiba's chest. He would never let anyone who dared to touch his daughter live in this world. At the same time, Yagyu Yukaim also led her people to eliminate all the remaining forces of the Chiba family. After solving the problem of the Yagyu family, Qin Haodong stepped into the air again. When he arrived at Hu Xiaoxian's side, the others had already arrived. Everyone returned to Wuxia together. In the Neon military headquarters, Awa Miura stood there in a daze after seeing the dense artillery fire instantly destroy the Chiba family, the Sato family, and the Inamoto family. What the hell is going on? What did I do? He didn't dare to think about the serious consequences of destroying the three great families in an instant. No, it's an enemy attack. He suddenly realized that all this must have happened because the underground base had been invaded. Thinking of this, he immediately deployed troops and sent people to surround the entire underground base. But when he arrived here, everything was calm and there was no sign of being occupied by the enemy. What the hell is going on? Awa Miura rushed into the fire control center with his men. Jiro Ono was watching the scene of the fierce attack on the big screen, and he was very excited. Such a large-scale attack had not happened for a long time. Moreover, this time he performed very well and completed the task assigned by his superiors in an instant. He believed that he would definitely be rewarded by the military headquarters. Just as he was jumping with joy, he saw Awa Miura rushing in with his men. "Hello, sir." In his excitement, Jiro Ono did not notice that Awa Miura was in a bad mood. He took his men and gave him a standard military salute. Awa Miura glared at Jiro Ono and shouted sternly, "What the hell is going on? You give me an explanation." "Explanation? What explanation?" Jiro Ono said with a confused face, "Sir, what happened?" Awa Miura felt that his lungs were about to explode. How dare he ask him after causing such a big trouble? He shouted angrily, "Let me ask you, why did you fire at the Chiba family, the Sato family, and the Inamoto family?" Jiro Ono said innocently, "Didn't I arrange it according to your instructions?" Awa Miura slapped him in the face and shouted angrily, "You bastard, when did I ask you to attack the Miura family, the Sato family, and the Inamoto family? Don't you know that the three families are the backbone of the empire?" The slap was so heavy that a bright red handprint appeared on Jiro Ono's face. He stood there and did not dare to move, but he said with great grievance, "Sir, I did it according to your orders." Awa Miura was so angry that he said angrily, "You bastard, when did I ask you to bomb the three families?" Jiro Ono said, "That's what you marked on the map. I asked you why you wanted to bomb the Chiba family at that time. You said that the three families had to sacrifice for the empire. I thought it was part of your plan, so I arranged the firepower." "Bastard, I'm talking about the sacrifice of the Chiba family. I'm talking about Chiba Island. The three families are sacrificing themselves because the patriarchs of the three families want to die together with the enemy. When did I ask you to completely destroy the foundation of the three families?" Awa Miura roared angrily, "And are you blind? I've marked the attack points on the map. Don't you even know this common sense?" Jiro Ono said with great grievance, "Sir, I arranged the firepower according to the attack points marked on the map." "That's impossible. Show me the map." "Yes, sir." Jiro Ono agreed and showed the map of firepower that Awa Miura had sent to him on the big screen. Awa Miura took a look at the map and saw that the attack point was clearly marked on Chiba Island. He immediately breathed a sigh of relief. If it was really his fault, he would not only lose his position but also be put in prison. Knowing that it was not his fault, he roared again, "Bastard, the attack points are marked so clearly. Why did you attack the three families? Were you bribed by the Wuxia people? That's why you betrayed our empire." Hearing this, Jiro Ono trembled with fear. It was a big crime to defect to the enemy and commit treason. If he was really accused of this, he would be sent to the military court. The final result would be death. "Sir, look carefully. I arranged the firepower according to the position you marked." As he spoke, he pointed to the Chiba family on the map and said, "Look at how clearly this position is marked. It's a red cross. Isn't this the mark of attack?" Awa Miura couldn't believe his ears when he heard his words. "What did you say? Say it again." "I said that this is the attack signal you set up. It's a red cross. It's very clear." "Nonsense." Awa Miura slapped Jiro Ono in the face again. "Are you F***king crazy? This is obviously a green check mark, which is a sign that any military action is prohibited. How dare you regard it as a sign of military attack? Is your brain a pig's head?" Jiro Ono staggered. When he stood up straight, he said stubbornly again, "I'm not convinced. This is obviously a red cross. Why did you say it's a green check mark? Are you trying to frame me?" *CKU. Awa Miura was so angry that he raised his leg and kicked Jiro Ono to the ground. Then he called a soldier, pointed to the map on the big screen and said, "Tell him what is this?" The soldier, who had been standing by and watching, was completely confused. His superior had had a dispute with the military officer last time, and the focus of the dispute was the check mark and the wrong mark. It was such a simple question, but now he had to stand out and identify it. What should he do? Seeing that the soldier did not speak, Awa Miura became angrier and angrier. "I asked you to speak. Are you F***king deaf? Hurry up and tell me the truth. Tell me how you saw it." The soldier hesitated for a moment, and finally decided to tell the truth. He pointed to the mark on the wall and said, "Sir, this is a red cross. It's called the wrong mark in mathematics. It's our military attack signal. Officer Ono didn't make any mistakes." Awa Miura almost choked on his own saliva. It was obviously a green check mark. Why did these two people insist that it was a red cross? Were these people crazy? He was sure that this man was Jiro Ono's trusted subordinate, and the two of them had colluded together. He kicked the soldier away again, grabbed another one from the side and asked, "What do you think this is?" "Sir, this is a red cross." Awa Miura's heart collapsed. Why did three people say the same thing in a row? He raised his finger to the red cross marked on the Chiba Island and asked, "What is this?" "Sir, this is a green check mark." *CKU. Damn it. Awa Miura kicked the soldier away, and then he asked all the soldiers in the control center one after another. Everyone insisted that the mark on the map was a red cross. Awa Miura stood in front of the big screen and was completely dumbfounded. At this moment he felt that his worldview had collapsed. Could it be that he had made a mistake? Was the mark marked by the three great families really an attack signal? Soon, the senior officials of Neon thoroughly investigated the attack, and the final result was a little shocking. Awa Miura and Jiro Ono were not sent to the military court. Instead, they were sent to a mental hospital in a very strange way. It was said that it was because they couldn't figure out whether it was a check mark or a wrong mark. Chapter 765. After Qin Haodong and the others returned to Wuxia, Xinyuan Ligay directly took the four elders back to the Xinyuan pavilion, and the people of the Tang sect returned to the Tang sect. Knowing that the lost children of the Tang sect had finally been found, the seven great families in the capital secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Through this incident, they once again recognized the powerful strength of the Tang sect. It was not an exaggeration to say that there were many masters. If the Tang sect really got angry, none of them would be able to bear it. In the hall of the Tang sect, Chu Xianyue was sitting in the middle of the living room with her granddaughter in her arms, surrounded by others. Lin Momo said, "Tang, tell me quickly. Did they bully you? Did you suffer?" No, Mama, I had a good time." Speaking of this, the little fellow looked unsatisfied, as if she felt that the kidnapping trip had ended too quickly. Lin Momo scolded her, "Don't talk nonsense. How can you be happy when you are kidnapped?" "It's true, Mama." The little fellow began to talk about her experience vividly, starting from when she opened her eyes in Neon. When she talked about the way she gave lessons to the people in the fire control center, she giggled. "Papa, don't you think it's fun for those people to put a cross on the right questions and a check mark on the wrong ones when judging their children's homework?" Qin Haodong scolded her, Tang, you're too naughty." Hu Shaoxian raised her hand to stop Qin Haodong and shouted, "Wait a minute, I seem to understand what's going on." Qin Haodong said, "What do you mean? Look at you acting all jumpy. I understand why the Neon people hurt themselves." Along the way they had been discussing one thing, which was why Kyo Chiba wanted to bomb his family's residence. After discussing for a long time, no one figured out what was going on. Now hearing Hu Shaoxian's words, Qin Haodong asked, "Have you found the reason?" Hu Shaoxian said, "When I was on a mission in the Xinyuan pavilion, I once studied the fire control map of Neon. They generally marked the target with a red cross and marked the target with a green tick mark for the target that must not be touched." Speaking of this, Qin Haodong seemed to understand. "You mean that the little fellow used fox hypnosis to change these people's understanding of symbols, so that they regarded the red cross as a forbidden target and the location of the green tick as the target of attack?" Hu Shaoxian said, "That must be the case. Otherwise there's no way to explain the attack of the freaks. The Chiba family, the Sato family, and the Inamoto family had a high status in Neon, so they must have marked signs that forbade attacks. After the little fellow taught these signs, the soldiers at the fire control base regarded them as signs of attack and concentrated their firepower there. As for the Chiba island that Kyo Chiba was going to attack, it became a forbidden place, so he avoided the disaster." Lin Momo said with a look of horror, "Do you mean that Kyo Chiba originally wanted to make Chiba Island the target of attack, but because of Tang's nonsense, we escaped the disaster?" Qin Haodong said, "That's right. Kyo Chiba was ready to die with us. Once he couldn't control us, he would ask the military to blow up the entire Chiba Island. At that time, even a master of the Saint Realm would not be able to escape. It's a pity that his last blow was destroyed by Tang." Hearing them talking and mentioning her name, the little fellow was a little nervous. "Papa, did I do something wrong? Are you going to punish me?" Qin Haodong quickly picked up the little fellow and kissed her hard on the cheek. "This time, Tang has made a great contribution. Everyone should thank Tang." After hearing the explanation they had speculated, the others were secretly shocked. This time it was really thanks to the little fellow's help. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The next day everything was calm. Qin Haodong and Su Hui went to the Donghui Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine together. Not long after the clinic opened, they heard a commotion outside. They came to the door and saw a red BMW Z4 parked in front of the door. In front of the car, there were yellow roses as the edge and red roses as the core, forming a huge heart shape. In front of the flowers and the car stood a young man in a suit and leather shoes. He held the car with one hand and made a pose with the other, which he thought was very handsome. After Su Hui came out, the man immediately said excitedly, Hui, I prepared these for you. What do you think? Do you like them?" Qin Haodong understood. It turned out that this guy had made such a big noise to steal his woman. Then a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. This guy came to steal his woman, so he had to do something. When Su Hui saw the young man, a look of disgust flashed across her face. Sun Bowie, I've already told you that I have a boyfriend. Please don't bother me anymore, okay? Sun Bowie said, Hui Hui, don't lie to me. I've noticed that you've always been alone for so long. When have you ever had a boyfriend? Qin Haodong took 2 steps forward and said with a smile, Dude, I'm here. Can't you see me? Su Hui reached out and took Qin Haodong's arm. Do you believe me this time? I do have a boyfriend. Please don't come here again. Sun Bowie was stunned. He didn't expect that Su Hui really had a boyfriend, but he still said, Hui Hui, I'm absolutely sincere to you. As long as you're not married, I will always pursue you. Qin Haodong glanced at him and said with a smile, How? Are you going to use these wilted roses? A wilted rose? Hearing this, Sun Bowie was a little stunned. These roses were the freshest ones he had bought at a high price. How could they be wilted? But when he looked down, he was dumbfounded. He saw that the 999 roses in the shape of a heart were all wilted at this time. They didn't look like flowers at all. Bastard, how dare these people in the flower shop lie to me? Sun Bowie scolded fiercely. In his opinion, the people in the flower shop must have done something to the flowers. They looked fresh, but now they were withered quickly. He raised his head and said to Su Hui, I'm sorry, Hui Hui. I was cheated by those people, but it doesn't matter. I bought this car for you. It's the BMW Z4 with the highest configuration. I think this car is really a good match for you. Speaking of this, his face was full of confidence again. This BMW Z4 had cost him 1,000,000 yuan. He believed that it would definitely win the heart of the beautiful woman. But at this time, Qin Haodong said, Dude, is this a second-hand car bought from the old goods market? It doesn't look like a new car at all. The car is scratched and the tires are flat. Are you going to give this kind of car to Hui Hui? That's impossible. This is a new car I just bought from the forest shop. Sun Bowie looked back and his eyes almost fell to the ground. He saw that the 4 wheels of the BMW Z4 he had just bought were completely out of gas. The whole car was lying on the ground, which looked extremely strange. There were scratches on the body of the car, which looked extremely miserable. It didn't look like a new car at all. My car. Who the hell touched my car? Although Sun Bowie was also rich, he was not a rich young master who spent money like water. Looking at the miserable BMW Z4 in front of him, he felt extremely distressed. At this time, many people had gathered around to watch the fun. When they saw Sun Bowie's car, they immediately began to whisper to each other. Who is this? He looks well dressed. How could he use such a shabby second-hand car to chase after a woman? It's so shameful. That's right. It's an old rose and a second-hand car. If I were a girl, I wouldn't agree. Dude, hurry up and go back. Remember to be generous when you chase after a woman in the future. Dr. Su is so beautiful. How could you like such a thing? Facing the roars and sarcasm around him, Sun Bowie cried out in annoyance, My car is new. I don't know who did this to it. If I find out, I'll definitely kill him. Qin Haodong smiled and took Su Hui's hand back to the clinic. After entering the clinic, Su Hui quickly explained, Don't think too much. I don't know him at all. I just met him in the wholesale market of medicinal materials a few days ago. I didn't expect that he would keep coming after me. I don't know where he found my phone number a few days ago, but he kept calling me. Today he came to my door again. Qin Haodong held her delicate face and kissed her gently on the forehead. Don't worry. I'm not the kind of man who gets jealous easily. Besides, someone is chasing after my woman, which means that my woman is attractive. Seeing that Qin Haodong was not angry, Su Hui was relieved. Haodong, what did you do just now? She naturally knew that Sun Bowie must have brought flowers and a new car. It must have something to do with Qin Haodong's sudden change. It's just a little trick. Qin Haodong said with a smile, Since he dares to steal my woman, I naturally have to make him pay the price. It was normal for a beautiful girl to be pursued, so Qin Haodong did not go too far just now. He just embarrassed Sun Bowie in public and lost some money. The two of them continued to operate the clinic and treated the patients. After a while, Sun Bowie came in again, but his clothes had changed a lot. He took off his suit and put on a long robe. Su Hui frowned, stared at him and said, Are you done? Why are you here again? Sun Bowie hurriedly said, I promise you that it was just an accident. I really bought flowers and a new car. I didn't expect it to be like that. Give me some time. I promise I'll replace them with new ones tomorrow. Su Hui said, Your car and flowers have nothing to do with me. Go find another woman. I really have a boyfriend. Hui Hui, I know you're not a materialistic girl, so I have to introduce myself again. Sun Bowie straightened his back and said, My name is Sun Bowie. I'm 28 years old. My grandfather is Sun Fengqing of the Medicine King Clinic. I've learned medical skills from my grandfather since I was a child, so I'm also a Chinese medicine practitioner, an outstanding one. The Medicine King Clinic? That's the most famous Chinese medicine clinic in the capital. I also know Master Sun Fengqing. He's known as the Medicine King. It's said that he's the descendant of Sun Simiao. His medical skills are amazing, but it's a pity that there are too many people who come to see him. We can't even get a chance. This young man is the grandson of the Medicine King. It seems that his medical skills are not bad. After hearing his introduction, the surrounding patients immediately whispered to each other and talked about it. After hearing these people's praise, Sun Bowie's face flashed with pride. Hui, on behalf of the Medicine King Clinic, I invite you. As long as you're willing, you can work in our clinic tomorrow. Your annual salary is 1 million yuan. What do you think? Chapter 766. After hearing his words, the patients who had just calmed down began to get restless again. Oh my God, an annual salary of 1 million yuan. Why can't I be so lucky? Don't even think about it. Do you have Miss Sue's medical skills? What do you know? She values not only your medical skills, but also your appearance. Sun Bowie became more and more complacent. He really couldn't find a reason for Su Hui to refuse. Such a small clinic could only make 200,000 or 300,000 yuan a year. How could she refuse the temptation of an annual salary of 1 million yuan? I'm sorry, I don't want to. Su Hui's words directly brought Sun Bowie back to reality. What? Do you think the salary is too low? If you think the annual salary of 1 million yuan is too low, I can give you more. Su Hui said, it's not about money. I run my own clinic well. There's no need for me to work for others. Sun Bowie said, since you don't want to leave the clinic, it's easy. I can hang a sign of the branch of the Medicine King Clinic here. I can guarantee that the number of your customers will increase by more than 10 times and you will have endless money every day. Su Hui put down the pen in her hand, looked at him and said, I told you that it's not about money. I'll open my own clinic with my own ability and I don't want to rely on anyone's help. If there's nothing else, please go back. Don't affect my treatment of the patients. Hui listened to me. Seeing that he was pestering her, Su Hui couldn't help getting annoyed even though she was calm. She said, Sun Bowie, I'll tell you again. I have nothing to do with you and you can't call me Hui. Qin Haodong patted Su Hui on the shoulder and said, Hui, don't be angry with such a person. It's unnecessary. Sun Bowie was about to explode with anger. He was not allowed to call her Hui, but Qin Haodong immediately came over to call her Hui. Wasn't it obvious that he was humiliating him? Wait. Su Hui, I know you don't like money, but you can directly learn medical skills from my grandpa in our Medicine King Clinic. You know, my grandpa is the best traditional Chinese medicine practitioner in Wuxia. If you learn from him, you will definitely improve your level quickly, which is something that many people can't even dream of. His grandfather, Sun Fengqing, was indeed one of the best in the field of traditional Chinese medicine. He was even known as the king of medicine in the capital. There were so many people who wanted to be his apprentice. Therefore he played this card, thinking that Su Hui, who loved traditional Chinese medicine, would definitely be tempted. Su Hui said, Sun Bowie, let me tell you, if you want to learn traditional Chinese medicine, I have a good teacher around me. His medical skills are 10 times better than your grandfather's. Sun Bowie said, Su Hui, don't be angry. My grandfather is the king of medicine, the best Chinese medicine practitioner in Wuxia. No one can surpass him in medical skills. Su Hui sneered and said, the best traditional Chinese medicine practitioner in Wuxia. I don't think so. Sun Bowie was not convinced and said, do you think someone is better than my grandfather in medical skills? Yes. Qin Haodong said happily, it's me. Su Hui said, that's right. My boyfriend's medical skills are much better than your grandfather's. There's no need to learn from others. Looking at Qin Haodong, Sun Bowie's eyes were full of disdain. Su Hui, don't be deceived. Our traditional Chinese medicine practitioners are all about the accumulation of experience and qualifications. People like me who learned medical skills from my grandfather since I was a child, didn't make any achievements until I was 18 years old. He's so young. I'm afraid he hasn't even memorized the soup song. How can he be compared with my grandfather? I'm afraid he's not even as good as me. Speaking of this, he looked proud. In the field of traditional Chinese medicine in the capital, he had been called a prodigy since he was a child, and the whole Medicine King Clinic had high hopes for him. In private, he was even called the Young Medicine King. However, in Su Hui's eyes, Qin Haodong was unparalleled. He was the unique medical sage in the world. Even if the other party was the medicine king, he could not compare with her man. So after Sun Bowie finished speaking, her face immediately darkened. Sun Bowie, you're too arrogant. You can't even compare with a corner of my man. That's impossible. Of course, Sun Bowie would not be convinced by a young man in his 20s. In his opinion, Qin Haodong had deceived Su Hui with his appearance. He said, Hui Hui, you don't know how outstanding I am. I learned traditional Chinese medicine from my grandfather when I was 5 years old. At the age of 8, I could recite the soup song fluently. At the age of 10, I could accurately identify all the acupoints of the human body. At the age of 18, I was able to treat patients on my own. After the age of 20, I won countless honors. I've been commended by Director Yang of the Sanitary Bureau. What does he have? How can he compare with me? Commendation? I have one too. As Qin Haodong spoke, he slapped a red book on the table in front of him. Sun Bowie looked down and saw that it was the Best Medical Contribution Award, and below it was the Ministry of Health of Wuxia. He had just said that he had been commended by the Sanitary Bureau, but Qin Haodong took out a prize from the Ministry of Health in the blink of an eye, and the level was much higher than his verbal commendation. Although he was shocked, he couldn't lose face in front of the goddess he liked. He added, Su Hui, the commendation is not real. Last year, I was rated as an excellent traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. Only 100 people in the capital enjoy this honor. Honor? I have another one. As Qin Haodong spoke, he slapped another book on the table. Sun Bowie looked down and saw the words, National Master of Traditional Chinese Medicine written on it. It was still issued by the Ministry of Health of Wuxia. Sun Bowie's face was burning. How could he be so humiliated? He had just said that he was an excellent traditional Chinese medicine practitioner in the city, but Qin Haodong directly gave him a National Master of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Boy, don't be too arrogant. These official things don't mean anything. My grandfather is the king of medicine in Wuxia. I learned medicine from my grandfather and have treated countless people since I was a child. I'm called the Little King of Medicine. The reputation among the people is the most authentic. The reputation among the people? I have another one. Qin Haodong stood up and said in a mocking tone, It seems that I can't keep a low profile. I have to introduce myself. I'm Qin Haodong, and I also have a nickname in the field of traditional Chinese medicine. Medical Sage. What? You're the medical sage Qin Haodong? As a member of a traditional Chinese medicine family, it was impossible for Sun Bowie not to have heard of the medical sage. When he heard that the young man in front of him was the famous medical sage, he was so shocked that he opened his mouth wide. Half a month ago, he met Su Hui in the traditional Chinese medicine market. At that time, he was shocked and vowed to win this girl's heart. However, he did not expect that his rival in love was so powerful. He turned out to be the medical sage of Wuxia. However, when he thought of his grandfather's evaluation of Qin Haodong, he calmed down a lot. After hearing the name of the medical sage for the first time and the blood revival elixir that could completely cure leukemia, Sun Fengqin, the king of medicine, made such an evaluation. He said that it was impossible for such a young man to have such amazing medical skills, let alone the title of medical sage. The blood revival elixir must have been developed by the elixir recipe left by his ancestors, not by his own efforts. Thinking of this, he summoned up his courage again and said to Qin Haodong, Do you dare to compete with me in medical skills? If you lose, you will leave Su Hui. If I lose, I will quit immediately and never step into the Donghui Clinic of traditional Chinese medicine again. Qin Haodong said, Do you want to make a bet? Well, you take out 10 million yuan. If I lose, I don't want the 10 million yuan. If you win, you can take it away. Sun Bowie said angrily, Are you out of your mind? The 10 million yuan is mine. Why should I bet with you? It's good that you understand this. Su Hui is mine. Why should I bet with you? After saying that, Qin Haodong kissed Su Hui on the cheek. Su Hui suddenly blushed. She raised her hand and gently punched him in the chest. What are you doing? There are so many people here. Sun Bowie was so angry that he was speechless and could not say a word. This man is really unreasonable. Look at how loving Dr. Qin and Dr. Su are. How dare he bet with Dr. Qin's girlfriend? I really don't know what he is thinking. That's right. Is this man out of his mind? He said that he is from the Medicine King Clinic. I think he is really a disgrace to the old Medicine King, Sun Bowie said angrily. Qin Haodong, in my opinion, you are just fishing for fame. Well, I'll take out 10 million yuan and you will also take out 10 million yuan. How about we make a bet? Qin Haodong shook his head again and said, "That's enough. You can leave now. If your grandfather is here, you are not qualified to compete with me in medical skills. You don't dare to? You can think whatever you want." Qin Haodong really didn't take Sun Bowie seriously. If any Tom, Dick, or Harry could stand up to challenge his medical skills, then his title of medical sage would be too worthless. You. Sun Bowie's face was full of anger. Suddenly he seemed to have made up his mind. He stepped to another empty table next to him and sat down. "It's fine if you don't dare to compete with me. Today I'll show you some of my skills and show you my medical skills." He said to the patients present, "I'm Sun Bowie from the Medicine King Clinic. Anyone who wants to see a doctor can come to me. I can treat you for free." Seeing that he was treating patients in her clinic, Su Hui stood up and said, "Sun Bowie, this is my place. Why are you treating patients here? Get out of here." "Su Hui, don't worry about me. I just want to show this guy who doesn't deserve his reputation." He wanted to treat patients here for two purposes. One was to show Qin Haodong's prestige, and the other was to show Su Hui his medical skills so as to win her heart. Su Hui was about to say something when Qin Haodong stopped her and said, "Forget it, Hui Hui. We don't need to pay for free labor. Let him see if he wants to." Seeing that Qin Haodong didn't object, Su Hui didn't stop him. The patients present were not from the traditional Chinese medicine world, so they didn't know much about the medical sage. But they knew very well about the Medicine King Clinic, which was born and raised in the capital. Today the young Medicine King would treat patients for free. These people immediately lined up in front of Sun Bowie, while Qin Haodong and Su Hui were free. Sun Bowie glanced at Qin Haodong proudly and said, "See? This is fame. Go ahead. If there are any difficult miscellaneous diseases that you can't treat, come to me." Qin Haodong was not angry at all. He made 2 bowls of fragrant tea, gave one to Su Hui and kept the other for himself. Sun Bowie snorted and began to treat the patients in front of him. He was very busy feeling the pulse, asking for diagnosis, performing acupuncture and writing prescriptions. As the heir of the Medicine King Clinic, his medical skills were much better than those of his peers. He was comparable to an old Chinese medicine doctor who had been famous for many years. Moreover, he was very fast. In less than an hour, he had seen more than a dozen patients in succession. At this time, a young woman in her 30s came in. She was not beautiful, but the curve of her chest was a little exaggerated. It was estimated that she would not be able to see her toes if she didn't lower her head. She was the kind of meat that made men salivate. She was a beautiful woman. This chapter is for readers who have monthly votes. Chapter 767. The woman sat in front of Sun Bowie and kept coughing. Her chest was heaving up and down as she coughed, which made people feel that her chest was surging. Sun Bowie took a peek at the woman's chest, but when he thought that Su Hui was watching, he quickly looked away. "Miss, what's wrong with you?" The woman said, "Doctor, I may have caught a cold these days. I keep coughing." Sun Bowie felt her pulse and said, "You really have a cold in your lungs. I'll give you a prescription to warm the lungs and dispel the cold. You'll be fine after taking it for half a month." "Do I have to take it for half a month?" The woman said while coughing. "Doctor, is the medicine bitter? Does it taste bad?" Sun Bowie said, "Traditional Chinese medicine is always bitter, but bitter medicine is good for the disease. As long as you take the medicine according to my prescription, you will definitely be cured in half a month and will never relapse." The woman frowned and said, "But I can't stand taking such a bitter traditional Chinese medicine soup for half a month. Can you help me think of another way?" Sun Bowie said, "If you don't like taking medicine, you can use acupuncture. Our Sun family has the ancestral Lioha magic needle, which is very effective in treating your cold lungs." The woman said excitedly, "That's great. I want acupuncture." "If you want acupuncture, please come with me." Sun Bowie carried the medicine box and took the woman into the massage room next to him. But less than 2 minutes later, there was a crisp sound, and then the woman came out angrily. "You scoundrel, this is not acupuncture. You just want to take advantage of me." Sun Bowie then walked out of the massage room. There was a bright red palm print on one side of his cheek. It seemed that he had been slapped hard just now. "Why are you like this? Why did you hit me?" The woman pointed at his nose and shouted, "Why do you ask people to take off their clothes to treat a disease? I don't think you're treating a disease. You just want to see my chest." Because of her figure, every time she went out, countless men would stare at her chest, which made her extremely sensitive to it. Just now, when Sun Bowie suggested that she take off her clothes for acupuncture, the woman immediately became angry and slapped him. Sun Bowie said innocently, You proposed acupuncture. How can I recognize the acupoints if I don't take off my clothes? What if I pricked the wrong acupoint? The woman said rudely, don't talk nonsense. I think you're trying to get me. Qin Haodong naturally didn't mind making trouble for those who wanted to poach him. He said happily, sister, you're right. He just wants to take advantage of you. Sun Bowie said angrily, Qin Haodong, that's nonsense. Don't defame me. I'm treating a patient and saving a life. There's no need to make people take off their clothes to save people. Qin Haodong said to the woman with a playful look, sister, he is lying to you. In fact, you don't need to take off your clothes to perform acupuncture. You can do it with your clothes on. The woman immediately shouted, I knew it. How can you ask me to take off my clothes when treating a patient? You just want to take advantage of me. Sun Bowie knew that Qin Haodong was teasing him. He said angrily, how can I recognize the acupoints if I don't take off my clothes? Why don't you make one for me? As far as he knew, no one could perform acupuncture with clothes on, not even his grandfather, the king of medicine, Sun Fengqing. Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, now I'll show you the gap between us. Then he picked up the needle bag on the table and said to the woman, sister, your disease is easy to cure. You'll be cured as long as you have acupuncture. Really? Little brother, thank you. The woman was about to walk to the massage room. Just as men like beautiful women, women also liked handsome men, so this woman's attitude towards Qin Haodong was much better than that of Sun Bowie. She even thought that it didn't matter if she took off her clothes in front of Qin Haodong. It would be good if she could hook up with this handsome young man with her own money. Qin Haodong stopped her and said, sister, you don't have to. I've told you that it's taking advantage of me if I ask you to take off your clothes. We can do acupuncture here. Then he asked the woman to sit on the chair in front of him, took out the silver needles and prepared to perform acupuncture. Sun Bowie immediately shouted, Qin Haodong, don't do anything rash. You'll die. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, he knew very well how important acupoints were to a person. Once he recognized the wrong acupoints, the consequences would be unimaginable. Qin Haodong didn't care at all. Under the scanning of his spirit, it made no difference whether the woman was wearing clothes or not. He ignored Sun Bowie at all and moved as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he pierced more than a dozen silver needles into the woman's chest, such as the Quanzhong, the Zhongwan, and the Qimen acupoints. Sun Bowie was completely dumbfounded. He didn't expect this young man to be so bold. Even if the woman took off her clothes, he couldn't recognize the acupoints so quickly. Qin Haodong, you'll definitely make a mistake. Hurry up and pull out the needles. Don't worry, it won't be wrong. Qin Haodong said to the woman, sister, how do you feel? Since the silver needles were inserted into the acupoints, the woman immediately stopped coughing. She said in surprise, little brother, your medical skills are amazing. Now I feel warm and comfortable in my chest. I don't cough anymore. How is this possible? Sun Bowie stood there in a daze. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. 5 minutes later, Qin Haodong took out all the silver needles and said, sister, you've completely recovered. Just be careful not to catch a cold in the future. Little brother, thank you. Thank you so much. How much is the consultation fee? Just tell me. The woman took out her wallet and was about to pay. Qin Haodong glanced at Sun Bowie and said with a smile, sister, I don't need the consultation fee. I apologize to you on behalf of my brother. Sun Bowie was confused. What did I do wrong? Why should I apologize? You rascal, don't let me see you again. The woman put away her wallet and spat at Sun Bowie. It turned out that she didn't need to take off her clothes for acupuncture. This guy just wanted to see her chest. She then said to Qin Haodong, little brother, we're both doctors, but there's a big gap between us. If only doctors could be like you. I accept your apology and won't argue with this guy anymore. Otherwise, I'll call the police to arrest him. After that, she gave Sun Bowie a hard look and walked out of the clinic. I really didn't know that Dr. Sun was such a person. Seeing that the woman's chest was big, he had a bad idea. That's right. How can a doctor do this? He can perform acupuncture without taking off her clothes, but he asked her to take off her clothes. Isn't he a hooligan? Hearing the discussion around him, Sun Bowie glared at Qin Haodong and said, Qin, did you trick me? Qin Haodong said, I also used my ability to trick you. If you don't like it, you can trick me too. You. Sun Bowie was speechless. Indeed, Qin Haodong also used his ability to trick him. He could accurately recognize the acupoints without taking off her clothes. Even his grandfather couldn't do that. But in front of his goddess, he naturally couldn't bow his head and admit defeat. He said, "It's just recognizing the acupoints through her clothes. It's not a big deal. Even without you, I can still cure that woman's disease. It doesn't mean that your medical skills are better than mine." Qin Haodong said casually, "Well, go on." After that, he sat back in his seat and drank tea leisurely. Sun Bowie glared at him and continued to treat the patients in the clinic. However, after what had happened just now, all the patients who stayed in his clinic were men, and all the female patients went to Qin Haodong's clinic. What made Sun Bowie most depressed was that even the 60-year-old woman did not go to his clinic. She even looked at him as if he were a pervert. Fortunately, Qin Haodong's speed was very fast. It only took him half an hour to finish treating all the 7 or 8 female patients in front of him. The patients who entered the clinic later did not know what had just happened. When they heard that this was the junior medicine king of the Medicine King Clinic, they ran to Sun Bowie's clinic again. After a while, a young man in his 20s came in with a middle-aged man in his 50s on his back. Both of them were dressed in very shabby clothes. It was obvious that they were poor people. The young man put the middle-aged man on the chair. Sun Bowie felt the middle-aged man's pulse and said, "Are you suffering from gout?" "Doctor, you're right. My gout has been getting worse and worse recently. Now I don't dare to touch the ground at all. I can't walk or work. Even so, it's still very painful. It doesn't matter. I can cure it." Sun Bowie wrote down a prescription and handed it to the middle-aged man. "Take the medicine according to this prescription, and your gout will be completely cured in half a month. But you should eat less animal viscera and soy products in the future." "Thank you, doctor." The middle-aged man took the prescription and asked hesitantly, "Doctor, I want to ask you something. Is the medicine on the prescription expensive? How much does it cost for a month?" Sun Bowie said, "It's okay. It's not too expensive, but it will cost at least 3,000 yuan a month." The middle-aged man sighed and said, "Doctor, to tell you the truth, my family is very poor. A few years ago, my mother just got sick and passed away, and there was a lot of famine in my family. I can't work because of gout. I rely on my son to support my family. I don't have so much money to take medicine. Can you help me find another way?" Sun Bowie said with embarrassment, "I understand what you said, but you have to pay for the medicine. I can't help you." The young man said, "Dad, don't worry. I'll go out and find a way to borrow some money to buy medicine for you." The middle-aged man sighed again and said, "We haven't paid off the debt yet, so we can't borrow any more money. I'll just wait for a while. I think I'll be fine after a while." Sun Bowie said, "Your symptoms are in the early stage and can be cured. But if it goes on like this, your joints will be deformed. Then it will be troublesome." The middle-aged man said with a sad face, "But our family really has no money to buy medicine. I can't add to the burden of the child. Come here. You don't need to take medicine here." Qin Haodong waved to the young man and the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was immediately overjoyed and said, "Doctor, can I really cure it without taking medicine?" Qin Haodong said, "Of course. I just need to give you a massage and you'll be cured. You don't need to take medicine and I won't charge you any medical fee." "That's great. Doctor, you're really a living bodhisattva. Thank you so much." The middle-aged man asked the young man to carry him to the chair in front of Qin Haodong and sit down. Sun Bowie said angrily, "Qin Haodong, this is not the way to show off. I've never seen anyone who can cure gout with massage." "That's because you didn't meet me earlier. If you had met me earlier, you wouldn't be as ignorant as you are now," Qin Haodong said as he stretched out his hands and pressed them on the middle-aged man's legs. While massaging, he passed pure green with genuine qi to dredge the blocked meridians. As the saying goes, if the meridians were unblocked, there would be no pain. A few minutes later, he opened up all the meridians in the legs blocked by gout, and the pain in the middle-aged man's legs immediately disappeared. Chapter 768. After curing the gout in the middle-aged man's leg, Qin Haodong did not stop there. He had already seen that the father and the son were really in a difficult family, so he helped them again. He refined the middle-aged man's body from head to toe with green wood genuine qi. From now on, not only would he not get sick, but his body would also be much stronger than before. Even if he relied on his physical strength to make money, he could make more money than others. 10 minutes later, he patted the middle-aged man's thigh and said, "Uncle, it's done. You can stand up and have a try." "Really? Am I really cured?" The middle-aged man felt that his feet not only did not hurt, but also felt very comfortable. He seemed to be full of strength. Before the young man came to help him, he stood up from the chair. The young man said nervously, "Dad, be careful. Don't fall." "Yes, I'm really cured." The middle-aged man hugged his son excitedly and spun around 3 times. Everyone was dumbfounded. Wasn't the treatment a little too effective? His son had carried him here just now, but now Qin Haodong had picked him up. After all, the man weighed more than 50 kilograms. Even a healthy person could not carry him so easily. After the excitement, the middle-aged man put his son on the ground. They bowed deeply to Qin Haodong together and said, "Doctor, thank you. We will never forget your great kindness." The young man took out the only 2 red banknotes from his pocket and said, "Doctor, I'm really sorry. This is all we have. You can pay for the treatment." Qin Haodong waved his hand and pushed the money back to him. "No need. I said that this treatment is free." After they thanked him again, the middle-aged man turned around and said to Sun Bowie, "Young man, you're a good man, but your medical skills are too poor. You should learn more from this young doctor in the future." After that, the father and son left the clinic, leaving Sun Bowie in a mess. Although Qin Haodong did not accept his challenge and did not compete with him in medical skills, the treatment just now was enough to tell who was better. The medicine that he had prescribed would take a month to cure the patient's illness, but the patient had only massaged for 10 minutes and left energetically. Even those who did not know medicine could see how big the gap between the two of them was. He was a little discouraged, but when he looked at Su Hui next to him, he couldn't bear to leave. He must be good at treating gout but not other diseases. After finding an excuse for himself, he returned to his seat and continued to treat the patients. He was waiting for an opportunity. He was waiting for Qin Haodong's case to be cured. At that time he would make a move and earn back his face. When it was close to noon, a woman in her 30s walked into the clinic with the sound of high heels. This woman was also somewhat good-looking. She was dressed fashionably and carried an LV bag in her hand. It seemed that she was a rich young lady. She stood at the door and looked at Qin Haodong and Sun Bowie. She frowned and said, "Don't you have any older doctors here?" Sun Bowie said, "Lady, you can't just look at your age. My grandfather is Sun Fengqing of the Medicine King Clinic. I'm the young Medicine King. I'm here to help you. If you have any disease, you can come to me." The woman's face lit up when she heard that. She knew the name of the Medicine King, Sun Fengqing, but it was a pity that it was too difficult to make an appointment. It was a good idea to ask the grandson of the Medicine King for help. "Young doctor, as long as you can cure my disease, I'll pay you as much as you want." Then she put her wrist in front of Sun Bowie. Sun Bowie put his right hand on her pulse and began to feel it carefully. After a long time, he took back his hand and said with a puzzled face, "Lady, you look very healthy. You're not sick." Hearing what he said, the woman's face immediately became cold. "I say, are you a doctor or not? Can I come here to see you if I'm not sick?" "Lady, then tell me what's wrong with me." His question was normal, but the woman's face became more and more gloomy after hearing it. "Aren't you a Chinese medicine practitioner? Don't you diagnose by feeling the pulse? If I tell you, what else can I do for you?" Sun Bowie said, "But Chinese medicine is about looking, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse. Asking the patient what's wrong is also an important way to diagnose. You have to cooperate with me to make a more accurate diagnosis." "No, I can't tell you. You have to figure it out yourself." Well, if it had been in normal times, Sun Bowie would have driven such an unreasonable patient out. But now his goddess was watching, and he couldn't drive the patient out without even diagnosing the disease. That would be a great shame. In desperation, he reached out to feel the woman's pulse again. He felt both of her wrists, but as before, there was nothing wrong with her. "Lady, what do you think? What's wrong with you? If it's not convenient for you to tell me, you can let me have a look. Our Chinese medicine practitioners are all about looking, rogue bastard." Before he could finish speaking, the woman jumped up from her seat and slapped Sun Bowie hard in the face. Sun Bowie's cheek had just been slapped. Now that he was slapped for the second time, it immediately swelled up. "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" He was so aggrieved. He had been treating patients for so many years, but he had never been slapped twice in a row like today. He was too unlucky. "I don't think you're sick at all. You're here to make trouble." "Nonsense. You can't tell that I'm not sick. You're a quack." The woman scolded the quack, picked up her bag and walked out of the clinic. At this time, Qin Haodong called out, "Sister, I can cure your disease." The woman paused for a moment and said, "I don't want to cure you. There's no serious doctor here." She saw that Qin Haodong was younger than Sun Bowie, so she didn't trust him from the bottom of her heart. She continued to walk to the door. Qin Haodong said again, "Sister, if I'm not mistaken, your disease started after the operation, or is it the sequelae of the operation?" The woman had already stepped out of the door, but when she heard this, she suddenly stepped back. She looked back at Qin Haodong and said, "Little brother, how did you know?" Qin Haodong said, "Chinese medicine is about looking, listening, questioning, and feeling the pulse. Looking depends on the patient's qi, not on the specific parts of the patient." "Little brother, you're right. You're not like that quack." The woman glared at Sun Bowie and then sat down in front of Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong felt the woman's pulse again and said, "Your body was very healthy before. The current problem is that after the operation, the organ's autoimmune regulation system was destroyed, which is the sequelae of the operation. For this kind of situation, Western medicine can't do anything. I'll give you a prescription that can not only treat your illness, but also help you adjust the immunity there. But in the future, you must be careful not to do this kind of surgery again. Everything that goes against nature is harmful to the body." The woman blushed at first, then nodded and said, "Little brother, I see. Thank you." Qin Haodong's words not only pointed out her condition but also protected her privacy, which made the woman admire and feel grateful. Soon, Qin Haodong wrote a prescription and gave it to the woman. "Take the medicine according to this prescription, and you'll be fine in a week." "Thank you, doctor." The woman put a stack of money on the table, then took the prescription and walked out of the door. Before leaving, she did not forget to say to Sun Bowie, "Quack." As the grandson of Sun Fengqing, the king of medicine, Sun Bowie had always been very proud. But today he had been scolded as a quack twice, which made him both ashamed and aggrieved. At the same time, he was also very curious about the woman's condition. He could not tell what it was, but Qin Haodong could see it clearly. He wanted to go over and ask, but in the end he was too embarrassed to do so. At this point he was too ashamed to stay here any longer. He had not even found out the cause of the disease, but Qin Haodong had earned 10,000 yuan in the blink of an eye. This made him completely lose his temper. If he stayed here any longer, he would only humiliate himself. After packing up the medicine box, Sun Bowie walked out of the Huidong Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine with a bleak look. After he left, Su Hui said, "What the hell is going on? What's wrong with that woman? Didn't she just have an operation? Why are you acting so mysterious?" Qin Haodong said, "Because her operation is special." Chapter 769. Qin Haodong said, "Of course. Moderate drinking is good for your health." After getting a positive answer, Mu Bison laughed like a child. He turned to Mu Haiqing and said, "Boy, did you hear that? Dr. Qin said that I can drink and moderate drinking is good for my health. Don't stop me when I drink in the future." Qin Haodong couldn't help smiling. It turned out that the old man called him here for the purpose of giving him an imperial sword that could drink. But it was understandable. Few people who had walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood did not like to drink. These years he was sick and could not drink, which made the old man feel suffocated. Mu Haiqing said with a wry smile, "Okay, you can drink a little if you want, but listen to Dr. Qin. Don't drink too much at one time." "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and get some wine. Have a good drink with Dr. Qin." Seeing that he could drink, the old man was happy as if he were celebrating the new year. Soon Mu Haiqing prepared a table of wine and dishes. The old man excitedly invited Qin Haodong and Hua Mingrui to sit at the table. He picked up the bottle of Maotai on the table and happily poured a glass for each of them. Then he said, "Dr. Qin, try this bottle of Maotai that I hid more than 20 years ago. At that time, I wanted to wait for this girl to get married. But after so many years, this girl is still not married. I can't wait any longer. Let's have a drink first today." Hua Mingrui peeked at Qin Haodong and said with a blush, "Grandpa, you can drink. Why are you talking about me? Let's stop talking. Let's drink." Mu Bison said as he reached out to pick up the wine glass in front of him. First, he squinted his eyes and sniffed the fragrance of the wine. Then he drank up the wine in the glass. As soon as the wine entered his stomach, he shouted excitedly, "Great, it's really great. I haven't been so happy for many years." Mu Haiqing said, "Dad, Dr. Qin said that you can only drink in moderation. You can only drink 2 glasses today. You still have 1 glass left." "Is there only 1 glass left?" Mu Bison's face immediately became bitter. "You gave me too little. I was famous for being able to drink 1,000 glasses without getting drunk." Qin Haodong said, "Master, it's better to drink in moderation." "All right then, let's drink slowly." After Mu Bison said that, he invited them to eat. Everyone chatted while eating and soon they finished the bottle of Maotai on the table. Seeing that he was almost done eating, he said, "Little Qin, in fact, there's another reason why I asked you to come today. Old man, if there's anything you want to say, just say it. Qin Haodong had a deep respect for those who had made great contributions to Wuxia. It's like this. Back then, only the old squad leader and I were left in the same company. But 5 years ago, the old squad leader suddenly encountered a car accident. After his brain was injured, he became a vegetable and has been lying in bed ever since. Your medical skills are so amazing. Can you help me take a look at him? It would be best if you could wake him up from his bed and have another drink with this old man. He was now a general and so was his comrade. It was just that they valued their relationship more, so they always called each other old squad leader. Qin Haodong had enough confidence in his medical skills when he heard that he was going to treat the patient. No problem. Great, let's go now. Mu Bison stood up with the help of Hua Mingrue and walked to the door. The old general he was talking about was called Shinangua. He also lived in the sanatorium, which was next to Mu Bison's small courtyard. When they walked into the courtyard, a middle-aged man in a military uniform came out to greet them, with the rank of a major general on his shoulder. Uncle Mu, you're here? The middle-aged man was called Shin Taijun, and he was Shinangua's son. I'm here to see the old squad leader. Mu Bison took Qin Haodong's arm and introduced him. Xiaojun, let me introduce you. This is the miracle-working doctor who cured the old man, Dr. Qin. Today, I also brought him here to let him have a look at the old squad leader. Originally, Shin Taijun didn't care about Qin Haodong. He thought that he was just Hua Mingrue's boyfriend. Now that he heard that the man in front of him was the miracle-working doctor who had saved Mu Bison from death, he immediately greeted him politely. Hello, Dr. Qin. Can you really cure my father? Shin Taijun was very excited. His father had been lying in bed for 5 years. He had seen countless famous doctors over the years, but there was no effect. He even lost hope. Mu Bison stood up from the bed again, which made him see hope again. Qin Haodong said, It's hard to say now. I have to see the patient to be sure. Dr. Qin, please. Shin Taijun said and eagerly invited Qin Haodong and the others into the room. There was an old man lying on the bed. It was Shin Tiejuan's father, Shinangua. Shin Taijun said eagerly, Dr. Qin, please help me. As long as my father can wake up, I'll do anything you want me to do. Don't worry. Let me take a look first. Qin Haodong came to the bedside and reached out to feel Shinangua's pulse. 2 minutes later, he had seen Shinangua's condition clearly. The other parts of the old man's body were normal, but his head was damaged by an external force, so he became a vegetable. Seeing that he had finished feeling the pulse, Shin Taijun asked again, Dr. Qin, how is my father's illness? Can he be cured? Qin Haodong said, Yes, and it's not difficult. I'll be able to wake him up soon. Hearing that Qin Haodong could cure Shinangua's disease, the tense nerves of the people around them immediately relaxed. Mu Bison said, Little Qin, tell me how the old squad leader became a vegetable. Qin Haodong thought for a moment and said, Old master, let me give you an example. For example, you are a general commanding the army. Now you are trapped in the command room and can't get out. All means of communication have been cut off by the enemy. Even if you have thousands of troops outside, you can't command them. Now old Master Shin's situation is not much different from this. His brain is not damaged, his thinking is normal, and all the organs of his body are intact. The injury is in the nervous system that connects the brain with other tissues. The brain can't give orders to other parts, so he has become a vegetable. After listening to his explanation, Mu Bison nodded and said, Well said. I understand now. Unlike the other doctors in the past, I couldn't understand them even after a long time. Shin Taijun said, Dr. Qin, when do you want to treat my father? What do you need me to do? There's no need to prepare. I'll treat the old man now. Then Qin Haodong took out the needle bag and walked to Shinangua's bed. This kind of injury was incurable for other doctors, but it was not difficult for him. As long as he used the rejuvenative acupuncture to repair the damaged nerves, the old man could wake up again. He took out a silver needle and raised his hand to stab the acupoint on the old man's head. Stop. At this moment there was a loud shout, and then a doctor in a white coat rushed in from outside and shouted angrily at Qin Haodong, What are you doing? Who told you to do this? Do you know how dangerous it is? It's easy to die. I told you to do it. What's wrong? Before Qin Haodong could speak, Mu Bison suddenly became angry. Now Qin Haodong was a life-saving doctor in his eyes, and he was also his future grandson-in-law. How could he allow others to come here and talk nonsense? The man glanced at old Master Mu and said coldly, Who are you? Who are you to make this decision? Old Master Mu cried, Because it's my old squad leader lying on the bed, and because we were life and death friends. Who are you? What right do you have to tell me what to do here? Believe it or not, I'll ask someone to throw you out. He had been in the army all his life and had a fiery temper. Seeing that the doctor was so rude, he was immediately angered. General, don't be angry. We're all family. While they were talking, Xiao Weiman hurried in from outside. Seeing that the doctor in the white coat had a conflict with old Master Mu, he hurried forward and explained, General, let me introduce you. This is Director Zhuo Bufan. Director Zhuo has unique research in neurology. He is a scientific and technological talent that has just been introduced from abroad by the Ministry of Health of Wuxia. He returned to the central hospital as the deputy director. Today I invited him to treat old Master Shen. After listening to Xiao Weiman's introduction, Zhuo Bufan's face was full of pride. He did have the right to be proud. He was an expert in internal medicine, especially in neurology. This time Wuxia gave him a very high treatment, so he returned to Wuxia. For Xiao Weiman's sake, Mu Bison snorted and did not say anything else. After the introduction, Xiao Weiman saw Qin Haodong and went forward to greet him. Little Qin, you're here too. Qin Haodong said, Minister Xiao, I'm here to treat old Master Shen. What a joke. Only you can treat a patient with this thing. Zhuo Bufan pointed to the silver needle in Qin Haodong's hand and said, You're not treating a patient at all. You're killing him. If I had stopped him a little later, I'm afraid that he would have died by now. Qin Haodong frowned. This man was too rude. He had just rudely interrupted his treatment, and now he was questioning his medical skills. Dr. Zhuo, please watch your words. I'm a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and I'm treating a patient. How can you say that I'm killing him? Zhuo Bufan sneered and said, Traditional Chinese medicine, it's really funny. Can traditional Chinese medicine cure diseases? Qin Haodong was really annoyed by this kind of person who casually questioned traditional Chinese medicine. He said coldly, Traditional Chinese medicine is a medical skill that has been passed down in Wuxia for thousands of years. Why can't it cure diseases? Zhuo Bufan said with a disdainful face, Then let me ask you, do you know the structure of the human brain? Do you know how complicated nerves are? Do you know the basic composition of neurons? You don't understand these, do you? Since you don't understand, how dare you treat a severely vegetative patient? Isn't this murder? Qin Haodong said with a sullen face, That's right. I don't understand these things, but do you know yin and yang and the 5 elements? Do you know what acupoints and meridians are? Do you know the importance of qi to the human body? You don't understand either, do you? Traditional Chinese medicine and Western medicine are 2 different medical systems. Why should I understand your things? Seeing that the 2 of them were quarreling again, Xiao Weiman hurriedly came over to mediate. Don't quarrel, you two. We're all here to treat old Master Shen. We have to work together. Out of respect for Xiao Weiman, Qin Haodong did not say anything else. Zhuo Bufan snorted coldly and said, Minister Xiao has already introduced the patient's condition to me on the way, but I still need to see the detailed examination information. Dr. Zhuo, the information is here. Shen Taijun handed a thick stack of documents to Zhuo Bufan. He was now in a desperate state of mind. He felt that the more experts there were to treat his father, the better. Chapter 770. Zhuo Bufan read the whole examination materials from beginning to end. The more he read, the more serious his expression became. After he finished reading, Shen Taijun stepped forward and asked, Dr. Zhuo, is there any hope for my father's illness? Zhuo Bufan put down the materials in his hand and said, The patient's condition is very serious. If it's just an ordinary nerve fracture, it can be treated by surgery, but the location of the patient's nerve fracture is in the cerebral cortex. The brain is one of the most complicated organs in the human body. Once other organs are touched during the operation, it is very likely to cause brain death or lifelong paralysis of the patient, so it is impossible to complete the operation in this case. Xiao Weiman frowned. He had invited Zhuo Bufan here with great hope. Dr. Zhuo, how do you think we should treat this situation? Zhuo Bufan said, In view of the patient's overall condition, the best treatment plan is conservative treatment. Qin Haodong couldn't help saying, What do you mean by conservative treatment? Do you want the patient to sleep like this? Zhuo Bufan glanced at him and said, For now, that's the only way. Qin Haodong sneered and said, Is this the plan given by an expert like you? What's the difference between having you or not? Of course it's different. Zhuo Bufan said proudly, I'm an expert in neurology. Recently, I've developed a new medicine that can extend the patient's life by at least 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years of life extension? Qin Haodong sneered and said, "Do you mean to let the patient continue to lie in bed like this for another 3 to 5 years? Zhuo Bufan said, "I can responsibly say that this is the best treatment plan in the world. Life is precious. Although he's in a vegetative state, it's better than death." "You're wrong. This is the best treatment plan of your Western medicine. It doesn't represent our traditional Chinese medicine." Zhuo Bufan said with a cold face, "What do you mean? Don't tell me you have a better treatment plan?" Qin Haodong said calmly, "If it weren't for your trouble just now, the old man would have stood up by now." "What a joke. What a joke." Zhuo Bufan's face was full of disdain. "I've long heard that traditional Chinese medicine is a trick to deceive people. I've seen it today. I'm afraid that even God can't do anything to a person who has been in a vegetative state for 5 years. You can wake him up. If this isn't a lie, then what is?" Seeing that the two of them were arguing again, Xiao Weiman hurried forward and said, "Dr. Zhuo, Dr. Qin's medical skills are very good. He is known as the medical sage in Wuxia." At this time he was very regretful. If he had known that Qin Haodong was here, he would not have brought Zhuo Bufan here. Both of them were very good doctors, but the conflict between Chinese and Western concepts was too strong. Zhuo Bufan sneered and said, "Medical sage? Our Western medicine is so developed, but no one dares to call himself a medical sage. This kind of sensationalism can only be done by traditional Chinese medicine practitioners to deceive the ignorant people." Qin Haodong didn't want to argue with such a person. He turned to look at Shen Taijun and said, "Uncle Shen, if you believe in traditional Chinese medicine, I'll treat the old man. If you don't, I'll leave now." Mu Bison shouted, "Of course I believe you. My old man's life was saved by little Qin. I believe he can also save the old squad leader." Zhuo Bufan said, "I don't agree with the random treatment of traditional Chinese medicine. It can only aggravate the patient's condition. It may directly lead to death. At present, the best solution is conservative treatment." Qin Haodong pointed at him and said, "Your so-called conservative treatment is to let the old general, who once dominated the battlefield, lie in bed forever. This is not a treatment for him at all, but a kind of torture. Your so-called treatment can only prolong this torture for another 3 to 5 years. What's the point?" After that, without waiting for Zhuo Bufan to refute, he turned to look at Shen Taijun. After all, he was the patient's family member, and the final decision was in his hands. Zhuo Bufan said, "Mr. Shen, I hope you can consider it carefully. This kind of irresponsible treatment will only aggravate the patient's condition." Faced with this dilemma, Shen Taijun hesitated for a long time. Finally, he raised his head and said, "I know my father's character. It's not his choice to live without purpose. Lying in bed like this is really a kind of torture for him. I accept Dr. Qin's treatment." After that, he turned around and gave Qin Haodong a standard military salute. "Dr. Qin, please take care of my father." "Nonsense. It's nonsense." Zhuo Bufan turned around in annoyance and said to Xiao Weiman, "Minister Xiao, I think you should stand up and stop this farce." Xiao Weiman was also quite dissatisfied with Zhuo Bufan's arrogance and stubbornness. He said, "Dr. Zhuo, this is not a farce. Chinese medicine can also cure diseases." Well, although Zhuo Bufan was arrogant, he did not dare to offend Xiao Weiman's authority. After thinking for a moment, he turned to Qin Haodong and said, "Since you've decided to treat him, how about we make a bet?" Qin Haodong said, "Okay, what do you want to bet? If you fail this time, you have to publicly apologize to all the people of Wuxia, cancel your title of medical sage, and admit that Chinese medicine is a trick." Qin Haodong looked at Zhuo Bufan with burning eyes and said coldly, "Dr. Zhuo, I think there's one thing you need to understand. Chinese medicine has been passed down for thousands of years. It's the treasure of our Wuxia nation. It's not a trick. Even your ancestors survived with Chinese medicine. It can be said that without Chinese medicine there would be no me and there would be no you. Even if I can't cure old Master Shin's illness, it can only be said that I don't have a good understanding of Chinese medicine. It has nothing to do with the medical skills of Chinese medicine." Zhuo Bufan sneered and said, "This is all an excuse. It means that you don't dare to bet." Qin Haodong said, "Of course I will bet." Qin Haodong said, "But the bet has to be changed. If I lose, I will publicly apologize to all of Wuxia and cancel my title of medical sage. At the same time, I will say goodbye to the profession of doctor and never be a doctor again." Zhuo Bufan said, "That's fine. If I lose, I will also publicly apologize to Chinese medicine and say goodbye to the profession of doctor." "No need. I'm not as narrow-minded as you. Qin Haodong looked at Zhuo Bufan and said, I think your suit is good. Let's use it as a bet. If you lose, take off this suit and give it to me now. Zhuo Bufan's expression changed. It seemed that the bet was very small, but if his clothes were taken off in public, how could he, a returned doctor, an internal medicine expert and the deputy director of the central hospital, face others in the future? Seeing his hesitation, Qin Haodong asked, What's wrong, Dr. Zhuo? Are you afraid? Why wouldn't I dare? It's a deal then. As a medical expert who had studied in M country, he had seen almost all the medical cases in the world. He had never heard of anyone who could wake up a vegetative person in a short time. It was impossible. Therefore, in his opinion, this was a bet that he would definitely win. He dared to bet his life, not to mention his suit. After that, he turned to Xiao Weiman and said, Minister Xiao, please be a witness for us in case someone goes back on his word later. Xiao Weiman looked embarrassed. One of them was the best Chinese medicine practitioner in Wuxia, and the other was a leading figure of Western medicine. They could be said to be his right-hand men. But now that things had come to this, he had no room to retreat. He could only say, Well, I'll be a witness for you too. After the bet was settled, Qin Haodong took out the silver needles again and walked to the bedside. He was 100% confident in the treatment this time. Although he did not understand the structure of the human brain and the composition of neurons, these things were meaningless to him. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, he only needed to know where the meridians were and solve the problem. Under the observation of the spirit, he locked the position of Shen Anghua's broken nerves, and then began to use the rejuvenative acupuncture to connect the broken nerves. Soon, more than a dozen silver needles were pierced into the major acupoints on Shen Anghua's head. The green wood genuine qi continued to flow into his body through the silver needles, nourishing the injured meridians with the rejuvenative acupuncture. About 10 minutes later, he took back the silver needles. At this time, all the injured meridians had been connected, and the meridians in the head had returned to normal. After putting away the silver needles, he massaged his chest and dantian a few times. Shen Anghua had been bedridden for 5 years. Although his organs were intact, his meridians and qi and blood had fallen into a half-asleep state. They were fully activated after being nourished by the green wood genuine qi. The people around looked at him nervously. Only Zhuo Bufan looked at the ceiling with disdain, waiting for Qin Haodong to make a fool of himself. Seeing that Qin Haodong had put away the silver needles, Shen Taijun hurriedly asked, Dr. Qin, how is my father? He's fine. He's completely recovered. After Qin Haodong said that, he turned to Zhuo Bufan and said, Dr. Zhuo, this set of clothes is already mine. Take it off quickly. What a joke. Zhuo Bufan glanced at Shen Anghua, who was still lying in bed. Is this your so-called cure? I think you'd better hurry up and do another examination for the patient. Don't make him brain dead. Don't worry, that's good. Shen Anghua had been asleep for a long time, and Qin Haodong was giving him a buffer time. Seeing that it was about time, he reached out and patted Shen Anghua's dantian. With a snap, Shen Anghua, who was on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes and then sat up. His body did not feel stiff at all. Seeing that the old man suddenly sat up, the others were shocked and took 2 steps back. Shen Taijun was overjoyed and immediately rushed up to support the old man. He said with tears streaming down his face, Dad, you finally woke up? This. How is this possible? Zhuo Bufan was so surprised that his eyeballs almost fell to the ground. More than 10 minutes ago, he had been lying in a vegetative state on the bed, but now he suddenly sat up. This was really shocking. Although Shen Anghua had been lying in bed, his brain was not damaged at all, as Qin Haodong had said, so he knew what was happening around him clearly. He turned around, landed on his feet and stood up from the bed. He reached out to grab Qin Haodong's arm and said excitedly, Little magic doctor, thank you so much. Without you, the rest of my life would be completely wasted. After that, he turned his head and glared at Zhuo Bufan. You quack, do you know how much I've suffered over the years? This kind of life where I can't move is more painful than death. You actually want me to live for another 3 to 5 years. Aren't you cheating me? He had just heard Zhuo Bufan's treatment plan, but unfortunately he couldn't move at that time. Otherwise he would have jumped up and fought with this guy. At this point, Zhuo Bufan couldn't believe everything in front of him. If he hadn't just read the examination information, he would have really thought that the old man and Qin Haodong were performing together. How could a vegetative person wake up so easily? Qin Haodong looked at him and said, Dr. Zhuo, if you have nothing to say, can you take off my clothes now? Chapter 771. Well, Although he had made a bet, Zhuo Bufan was not prepared to take off his clothes at all. He could not do such a thing in front of so many people and then run back naked. He could only look at Xiao Weiman for help. Xiao Weiman sighed. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. Zhuo Bufan was indeed too arrogant. But no matter what, he was the one who brought him here. It would not look good if he really brought him back naked. He said to Qin Haodong, "Little Qin, Dr. Zhuo already knows his mistake. Let's forget about it." Zhuo Bufan quickly said, "Yes, Dr. Qin, I was wrong before. When I go back, I will publicly apologize to traditional Chinese medicine. Let's forget about taking off my clothes, okay?" Qin Haodong said, "No, you have to admit your defeat. But since Minister Xiao interceded, I will save you some face. I don't want your pants, but you still have to take off your shirt." This guy had just slandered traditional Chinese medicine with great momentum. This kind of person had to be taught a lesson, or he would not learn his lesson in the future. Zhuo Bufan looked at Xiao Weiman again, but this time Xiao Weiman did not even look at him. He turned his head and looked out of the window. Xiao Weiman knew very well that Qin Haodong had already given him face by leaving him a pair of pants. He could not go too far. Moreover, Zhuo Bufan had indeed gone too far just now, so he deserved a lesson. In desperation, Zhuo Bufan could only take off his shirt and glare at Qin Haodong fiercely. Now that things had come to this, he no longer had the face to stay there. He walked out of the sanatorium without looking back. His assistant was waiting outside in the car. He was shocked when he saw him running out naked. It was already autumn. Why was the vice director so hot? Zhuo Bufan got in the car and shouted to his assistant, "What are you looking at? Hurry up and drive." In the yard, Shen Taijun took out a bank card and stuffed it into Qin Haodong's hand. "Dr. Qin, there's 500,000 yuan here. Thank you for saving our old master." They were a military and political family and had a great influence in the political circle, but they were not very rich financially. 500,000 yuan was all his savings. Qin Haodong shook his head and pushed the card back to him. "Our stable environment today is all thanks to the old master's hard work. I don't need to charge him for treating the old master." Seeing that Qin Haodong insisted, Shen Taijun looked at Mu Bison awkwardly. Mu Bison said, "It doesn't matter if little Qin doesn't want it. He didn't have money to treat the old man. Anyway, he is Mingrue's boyfriend. We will be a family in the future." Shen Taijun could only keep his card after hearing Elder Mu's words. Old Master Shen said, "Young man, you're really good. Old Mu has already said that we will be a family in the future. As long as we two old things don't die, our words still have some weight in Wuxia. If you need anything in the future, just say it. We two old men will help you." After being nourished by the greenwood genuine qi, he did not look like a patient who had just recovered from a serious illness. On the contrary, he was in good spirits. He looked back at Hua Mingrue and said, "Time flies so fast. When I was injured, I was still a little girl. Now I have grown up. When are you going to get married? This old man must have a good drink." Hua Mingrue blushed. "Grandpa Shin, you're joking with me again. What's there to be embarrassed about? Besides, you and little Dr. Qin are really a good match. I think you're a good match." Shinangua turned to Shin Taijun and said, "Boy, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and arrange the food and wine. Old Mu and I are going to have a good drink with little Dr. Qin." Shin Taijun said, "Dad, you've just recovered from a serious illness. It's not good to drink. What if you have a relapse?" Qin Haodong said, "It doesn't matter. The old man has been completely cured now. It's okay to drink a little." The meridians he had reconnected with the greenwood genuine qi were even tougher than before. There was no possibility of a relapse. After a few drinks with the two old men, he returned to the Tang sect. The next day he accompanied Su Hui to the clinic of traditional Chinese medicine. At 9 o'clock in the morning, he had just seen a patient when the cell phone in his pocket rang. It was Xiao Weiman. The two of them had just met yesterday and now they were calling again. There must be something going on. He walked into the massage room with his cell phone. As soon as he pressed the answer button, he heard Xiao Weiman saying in a hurry, "Little Qin, where are you now?" Qin Haodong said, "I'm at the Huidong Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Wait for me there. I have something urgent to talk to you about." Xiao Weiman hung up the phone in a hurry. Qin Haodong put away his cell phone, but he was confused. What on earth could make a minister so anxious? 6 or 7 minutes later, Xiao Weiman hurried in from outside. Qin Haodong led him into the massage room and closed the door. "Minister Xiao, what's the matter?" "Little Qin, something big happened." Xiao Weiman took a breath and said, "I just received a report from the Department of Sanity of Yundian Province. There are a few very special cases there. Qin Haodong said, "It's normal for people to get sick, and it's normal for some difficult and complicated diseases. It's not a big deal, is it?" "It's not that simple," Xiao Weimin said with a heavy face. In the border between Yundian province and Myanmar, there was a small village called Oxhorn Village. There were not many people in the village, about 200 or 300 families. Behind the village was a big mountain called Savage Mountain. Many villagers in the village made a living by hunting. Just 4 days ago, a villager named Nyo Erwa suddenly fell ill after coming back from hunting in the mountains. He had a high fever and his whole body was convulsing. His family sent him to the county hospital. The hospital diagnosed it as a common cold and fever. After 2 injections, he was allowed to go back to the village to recuperate. After Nyo Erwa returned home, the high fever really subsided, but he was still in a coma. 3 days later he suddenly woke up, but he seemed to have changed into a different person. His hands and feet were stiff when he walked, just like a zombie in a movie. He had lost his mind and did not know anyone. He was extremely bloodthirsty and bit anyone he saw. Several villagers were bitten by him in succession. More than a dozen young and strong men gathered in the village to subdue him, but this guy was very strong after he went crazy. He bit a few more villagers in succession before he was tied up. But as soon as he was subdued, the injured villagers began to have fever and convulsions again, which was exactly the same as his previous symptoms. Qin Haodong's expression changed. This means that his disease is contagious. It looks like Resident Evil in the movie. Xiao Weimin said with a heavy expression, "It's true." The locals also thought of this and reported the matter to the county government. The county government did not dare to delay and immediately reported it to the higher-ups. Finally, it was reported to the Yundian provincial government. The Yunnan provincial government asked the Department of Sanity to organize an expert group to come to Oxhorn village and conduct a blood test on the injured villagers and Lu Erwa. In the end, they found that there was an extremely rare virus in their blood. It can be confirmed that Nyo Erwa and the other villagers' diseases were caused by this virus. Qin Haodong asked, "Is there any effective medicine for this virus?" Xiao Weimin shook his head. "If there is, the Department of Sanity of Yundian province would not have reported it. This kind of virus is a newly discovered type. It has never been seen before. There is no preventive vaccine or effective treatment. The only good thing is that this virus is transmitted through blood, so there is not much pressure to prevent it." Qin Haodong frowned and said, "Minister Xiao, it doesn't seem to be as simple as you think. You forgot how Nyo Erwa got infected with this virus. If we don't find the root cause, we can't completely prevent it. Other people may also be infected." Xiao Weimin slapped his thigh and said, "I really forgot about this. Now all the prevention and control work is focused on Nyo Erwa and the infected villagers. I forgot that there is a hidden source of infection." Qin Haodong asked, "How is Nyo Erwa now? Has he returned to normal? Can you tell me how he was infected with this virus?" Xiao Weimin said, "Not yet. Nyo Erwa has always been in that kind of zombie state and has no consciousness at all. I'll call them later and ask them to do a detailed medical examination for Nyo Erwa again. We must find the source of the virus." Qin Haodong said, "Minister Xiao, do you need me to do anything for you?" Xiao Weimin said, "The experts of the Ministry of Health have consulted the World Medical Association about this virus. It is indeed a newly discovered virus and there is no way to prevent or treat it. This virus is really terrible. If it is not controlled well, it will really become a biochemical crisis. Therefore, the Ministry of Health decided to form an expert group to Yundian province and eliminate this crisis from the source. The members of the expert group include experts from the Institute of Traditional Chinese Medicine, Western Medicine, Biochemistry Research Institute, and researchers from the Biological Research Center. I hope that everyone can work together to eliminate this new virus." Qin Haodong nodded. The Ministry of Health's emergency response was undoubtedly correct and appropriate. Xiao Weimin said, "Little Qin, I chose you and Mr. Sun Fengqing from the Medicine King Clinic. Zhuo Bufan will lead the team of Western medicine and he will be the leader of the expert group this time. I know that Zhuo Bufan is arrogant and he didn't have a good time with you yesterday, but I hope that you can focus on the overall situation and complete this task well." Qin Haodong said, "Minister Xiao, don't worry. I know what's important." Xiao Weimin nodded with satisfaction and said, "That's good. I originally wanted you to lead the team this time, but considering that Western medicine is better at viruses, I let Zhuo Bufan lead the team." Qin Haodong said, "Minister Xiao, it doesn't matter who leads the team, as long as we can eliminate this crisis." As a doctor, he had just felt the seriousness of the virus this time. If it was not controlled well and the virus was allowed to spread, it would endanger the entire human world. Xiao Weiman said, the expert group will set off tonight. You should get ready. In principle, you can bring an assistant. Qin Haodong said in surprise, Minister Xiao, the situation over there is already very critical. Why don't you set off immediately? Why do we have to wait until night? Xiao Weiman sighed and said, I'm also anxious, but this time the expert group will bring a lot of medical equipment with them. We need a special plane. The Ministry of Health doesn't have a plane, so we have to communicate with the aviation department. They said that there will only be a free plane at night. Qin Haodong said, Minister Xiao, I happen to have a private plane. I can use it for emergencies. Really? That's great. Little Qin, you've helped me a lot. Xiao Weiman was overjoyed. I'll inform the members of the expert group immediately and ask them to gather at the airport. When everyone is here, we'll take off immediately. Qin Haodong said, Minister Xiao, you're welcome. It's my duty to do something for the country. I'll ask someone to send the information of the plane to your mobile phone right away. I'll also rush to the airport now. Chapter 772. Xiao Weiman said happily, well, get ready first. I'll go back and inform them now. After that, he got into his Audi A6 and hurried back to the Ministry of Health. After Xiao Weiman left, Su Hui came over and asked, Haodong, what's wrong? Is something wrong? Qin Haodong briefly told him about the incident in Oxhorn village and then said, I'm now a member of the expert panel and I'm going to Yunnan province soon. After hearing his words, Su Hui immediately reached out and grabbed his arm. Haodong, I'll go with you. You don't have to. It's very dangerous there. Su Hui had entered the Tang sect, but Qin Haodong hadn't had time to help her improve her cultivation with the dual cultivation enlightenment method. At present, she was still a weak ordinary person. I don't care. I want to be with you. Su Hui, who used to be indifferent, acted coquettishly today. Aren't you afraid of being bitten by zombies? I'm not afraid. You're here anyway. All right, I'll take you with me, but you have to promise to listen to me when we get there. Don't leave my side for no reason. Qin Haodong finally agreed. He felt that it was no problem for him to take care of Su Hui with his cultivation. Besides, it was also a very rare experience for a doctor. Don't worry, I won't leave you. After saying that, Su Hui hung a closed sign at the door, and then began to pack up happily. According to Qin Haodong's original plan, he would leave immediately after informing his family, but it became much more troublesome after Su Hui joined in. Girls always brought a lot of things when they went out. 20 minutes later, Qin Haodong put all the things Su Hui had prepared into the storage ring, and then they drove to the airport. The Donghui Clinic of Traditional Chinese Medicine was on the west side of the capital, and the airport was on the east side of the capital. They almost crossed the entire urban area of the capital. Even though Qin Haodong's driving skills were superb, it took him more than half an hour to cross the city. Seeing that he was only a dozen kilometers away from the airport, he breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, an off-road vehicle next to him suddenly changed lanes and collided with his Range Rover. The collision was so sudden that both cars stopped in the middle of the road. Qin Haodong was so angry that he slammed the steering wheel. The more anxious he was, the more accidents would happen. He was in a hurry to get to the airport, but there was a traffic accident. He got out of the car and saw a tall middle-aged man with blood all over his head jump out of the car in front of him. He pointed at Qin Haodong and cursed, "What the hell is wrong with you? Do you know how to drive?" Although there was still some distance between the two of them, the strong smell of alcohol assaulted them. Just how much did this guy drink? Qin Haodong was in a hurry to go to Yunnan province, so he had no time to deal with this drunkard. He pulled Su Hui up and ran to the airport. His car was seriously damaged and could no longer be driven. Originally, he wanted to take a taxi, but this place was close to the airport and far away from the city, so it was impossible to take a taxi. Su Hui was an ordinary girl without any cultivation. After running a few hundred meters, she was already out of breath. It was broad daylight now, and it was not convenient for him to fly on his sword under the watchful eyes of the public. He could only squat down helplessly and said to Su Hui, "Come on, I'll carry you on my back." Su Hui said, "How can we do that? There's still more than 10 kilometers to go. I'd better persevere on my own." "You're walking too slowly. Hurry up. We're in a hurry." Qin Haodong did not say anything. He carried Su Hui on his back and ran in the direction of the airport. It was no problem for him to carry a person on his back, but it was a pity that he did not dare to show off too much, so he could only move a little faster than ordinary people. On a runway of the capital airport, a luxurious private plane was parked there, ready to take off. There were already 7 or 8 people in the cabin. They were all members of the expert team going to Yundian province this time, led by Zhuo Bufan, the deputy director of the capital central hospital. He held a list in his hand, glanced at the members in the cabin, and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Zhuo Bufan, the leader of this expert team. Now I'll take a roll call and see if all the departments are here. Yi Liang and Dong Anna from the Institute of Biochemistry." "Yes, leader." The one who spoke was a woman in her 30s. She was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and looked extremely elegant. She was Yi Liang, a researcher from the Institute of Biochemistry. Next to Yi Liang sat a coquettish woman in her 20s. Her name was Dong Anna, and she was Yi Liang's assistant. In such a large-scale event, the assistants were usually arranged by the higher-ups. They were all people with powerful backgrounds. Dong Anna was one of them. Zhuo Bufan nodded and said again, "Are Wang Aimin and Guotao from the Biological Research Center here?" "Leader, we're here." The one who spoke was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was Wang Aimin, a researcher from the Biological Research Center. Next to him sat a young man in his 20s. He was Guotao, his assistant. Compared with Wang Aimin's calmness, Guotao seemed to be much more frivolous. His eyes drifted over Dong Anna's snow-white thighs from time to time. Zhuo Bufan continued, "Zhao Meng, chief physician of the Capital Central Hospital." "Yes." The voice was extremely loud. The person who answered was a young man in his 30s sitting next to Zhuo Bufan. He was the assistant brought by Zhuo Bufan this time. After counting all these people, Zhuo Bufan finally frowned and said, "Sun Fengqing and Sun Bowie, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners." Although he had seen Qin Haodong's amazing medical skills yesterday, it did not reduce his rejection of traditional Chinese medicine at all. "I'm here." The person who spoke was an old man in his 70s. He was Sun Fengqing, the head of the Medicine King Clinic. Although he was a little old, he looked young and energetic. Sitting next to him was a young man. It was his grandson Sun Bowie. "Qin Haodong Suhui, are you here?" Although Zhuo Bufan had seen Qin Haodong's name a long time ago, he still called him last. He was full of resentment for the young man who had stripped him naked yesterday. After he called the names, the cabin was silent and no one answered. Zhuo Bufan called again, but there was still no response. Zhao Meng stood up and counted the people in the cabin. Then he said, "Leader, we've called all the people here, but those 2 haven't arrived yet." Zhuo Bufan's face immediately darkened. "It's outrageous. How could they be late for such an important action? Do they have any discipline?" Zhao Meng had also used his connections to enter the expert group. Although this guy didn't have much real ability, his flattery skills were top-notch. Although he had never seen Qin Haodong or even heard of his name, he could see Zhuo Bufan's disgust for this person. He immediately said, "That's right. This kind of person is too outrageous. Even the leader, such a busy big shot, has arrived. What right do they have to be late?" Yi Liang said, "We're in a hurry this time. It's inevitable that we'll be a few minutes late. Let's wait a little longer." Zhuo Bufan snorted and did not say anything else. When all the people were here, they unconsciously began to chat. Because this was a private plane, although the space was spacious, there were not many seats. They were all leather seats, which were more comfortable than the sofa at home. Dong Anna patted the leather seat under her and sighed, "This plane is really luxurious. I really don't know which rich man's plane belongs to." Yi Liang was sitting next to her, but she obviously did not have a good impression of this gold-plated assistant. She turned her head out of the window and did not answer. Guotao, who was sitting opposite, immediately came over and said, "I think so too. The person who can own this kind of plane must be a super rich man in the capital. It's only because Minister Xiao has a lot of faith that he can borrow this kind of private plane for our mission." The others were also constantly looking at the luxurious decoration of this private plane. There were televisions, refrigerators, and all kinds of household facilities. There was even a small bar at the rear of the plane. The wine cabinet was filled with all kinds of high-end wine. Although they were all elites in the scientific research field and talents in the medical field, it was the first time they had taken such a luxurious private plane. In the whispering discussion, another 20 minutes passed unknowingly. Zhuo Bufan's face became more and more ugly. It would be fine if someone else was late, but it was Qin Haodong who was late, which made him more and more angry. Feeling his emotions, Zhao Meng said, "Leader, I think we can't wait for this kind of person any longer. He is so undisciplined. It will be a bad thing if he goes there." Guotao also seemed to be impatient and said, "That's right. How can he be so late? Does he think other people's time is not his own time? At this moment Yi Liang, who had been looking out of the window, said, "Don't worry everyone. It seems that they are coming." The people in the cabin looked out of the window and saw Qin Haodong running towards the plane with a beautiful woman on his back. Soon he entered the boarding gate. Qin Haodong ran all the way with Su Hui on his back and finally got on the plane. He smiled at everyone and said apologetically, "I'm sorry everyone. Something happened on the way and I'm late." Is it enough to say sorry? Do you know what this operation is? How urgent is the situation? Do you have any discipline? Zhuo Bufan had been holding it in for a long time, and now he finally vented his anger. Qin Haodong frowned, but thinking of what Xiao Weiman had told him to focus on the overall situation, he said again, "I'm sorry, something really happened. I've kept you waiting." Zhao Meng shouted, "If you're sorry, why do you need the police? Do you know the importance of this mission? If we arrive in the disaster area 1 minute later, the epidemic there may be more serious. Can you bear the consequences?" Guotao saw that Qin Haodong was dressed in ordinary clothes and was not very old, so he naturally did not take him seriously. He said, "I hate people who are late the most. They don't take other people's time. Your behavior is squandering other people's lives." Dong Anna originally did not care about being late, but when she saw Su Hui, who was so beautiful that no one could find any flaws, a look of jealousy rose in her heart. She couldn't help but say, "I don't think there's anything special. Maybe the two of them are too in love." Seeing these people's endless sarcasm, Su Hui couldn't help getting angry. She said angrily, "In order to be in a hurry, our car crashed and is still on the road. Besides, Haodong has already apologized twice. What else do you want?" "Oh, you've made a mistake, but you're still so righteous." Dong Anna said, "Although we're a temporary expert group, we have to have our own rules. I don't think people like you who have no discipline should follow us." When Zhao Ming saw Su Hui, a look of amazement flashed in his eyes. However, considering Zhuo Bufan, who was livid next to him, he said, "I agree. I think this kind of person who has no sense of time is not worthy of staying in our expert group. You should be fired." Chapter 773. Dong Anna also shouted, "That's right. Both of them should be expelled." Guotao also said, "Mr. Zhua, hurry up and make a decision. I don't want to be associated with such people." Sun Bowie wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Sun Fengqing. Although the old man did not let his grandson speak, he did not help Qin Haodong either. There was a faint smile on his face from beginning to end, and he wanted to see how Qin Haodong would resolve the storm in front of him. Yi Liang kept looking at the two young people in front of her, and her eyes were full of curiosity. Wang Aimin, on the other hand, did not even look at them. He was just a researcher who was obsessed with scientific research, and he was not interested in these intrigues at all. Zhuo Bufan sneered and looked at Qin Haodong and Su Hui. "Did you hear that? It's everyone's wish to expel you. It's not my decision alone." Speaking of this, his face suddenly changed and he put on a businesslike expression. "Because Qin Haodong and Su Hui have seriously violated the rules in their first activity, I announce that they will be expelled from the expert group." After saying these words, he felt incomparably comfortable in his heart. He had finally avenged the day before when he was stripped naked. When he learned that Qin Haodong was in the expert group this time, he was extremely angry. He had been thinking about how to drive this guy out, but he did not expect that Qin Haodong would come to him as soon as he started. Qin Haodong glanced at Zhuo Bufan and knew that this guy was obviously taking revenge in public. Although the time limit for this gathering was very tight, there was no clear time to report, so there was no such thing as being late. He was just the last to arrive. If it had been someone else who arrived last, he believed that Zhuo Bufan would not have said a word. Then he looked at Zhao Meng and the others, who were gloating. These guys were obviously trying to flatter Zhuo Bufan. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth and he said, "Mr. Zhua, are you sure you want to expel the two of us?" "Of course. Nothing can be accomplished without following the rules. You must be expelled for being so late. Mr. Zhua, I hope you can think about it carefully or you may regret it later." Zhuo Bufan sneered and said, "People like you who don't follow the rules should be expelled. How can I regret it?" Zhao Meng also said, "Yes, you really think highly of yourself. Do you think we can't go to Yundian province without you?" "You're right. At least you can't go now." Qin Haodong was also completely angered by these guys. Although Xiao Weiman had told him to focus on the overall situation, it did not mean that he had no bottom line. He had to explode when it was time. He turned around and said, "Since they don't welcome me, let's go." After that, he took Su Hui to get off the plane. Everyone in the cabin thought that he was talking to Su Hui. Sun Fengqing shook his head secretly. Yesterday, Sun Bowie went back and told him that he had lost to Qin Haodong. He thought that this young man had some tricks, but now it seemed that he had thought too much. That was all. Zhuo Bufan, Zhao Meng, Dong Anna and the others were excited. They enjoyed the feeling of trampling someone to death. But soon these people found that a pilot and 2 flight attendants in the cabin also followed Qin Haodong out of the airport. Zhuo Bufan immediately felt that something was wrong. If even these people left, how could they go to Yundian province? He hurriedly shouted, "Where are you going? Don't go." The pilot glanced at him as if he were looking at a fool. He was a pilot selected by the members of Daddy's security company, so he naturally would not be kind to those who attacked his boss. "This is our boss's plane. Our boss has been driven out. Do I still need to serve you?" The beautiful flight attendant behind him followed and said, "By the way, you should also get off quickly. This flight is cancelled. We're going to close the cabin door." "What? The flight is cancelled? He's the boss of this plane?" Hearing this, the group's complacency immediately disappeared, replaced by a dumbfounded expression. None of them had expected that the owner of this private plane was Qin Haodong, and they had just driven him off the plane together. This was not a noisy guest taking over the host's place, but a dove occupying a magpie's nest. If the owner did not go, the plane would naturally not take off for them. This was something that could be easily figured out. Zhuo Bufan was completely dumbfounded. He was very clear about the importance the Ministry of Health attached to this operation. Otherwise, they would not have urgently called for a private plane just to be in a hurry. It was fine if he did not take Qin Haodong to Yundian province, but if this operation could not be carried out, Xiao Weiman would definitely kill him. This time he returned to Wuxia because he was completely moved by the generous conditions offered by the Ministry of Health. Country had already terminated the contract. If the contract here was also terminated, then he really had nowhere to go. Although with his medical level, he would not completely lose his job, it was impossible for him to find such a good treatment as the central hospital. At the same time, everyone else's eyes were focused on Zhuo Bufan's face. Yi Liang, Wang Aimin and Sun Fengqing's eyes were full of blame. They felt that he was making a fuss about it. As for Zhao Meng, Dong Anna, Guotao and the others, they did not have the support they had just now. This time they were here to gain experience. If they really messed up this operation, they were afraid that Xiao Weiman would be angry and they would not have such a chance in the future. Feeling the overwhelming pressure, Zhuo Bufan finally gritted his teeth, stood up, and walked toward the airport entrance. Dr. Qin, don't go yet." In the end, he stopped Qin Haodong, who was about to leave. Qin Haodong turned around and looked at Zhuo Bufan with a sneer. "Leader Zhuo, I've already been fired. Why don't you let me go? Don't tell me you want to arrest me? I'm just a little late. It's not that big a crime, is it?" Zhuo Bufan said embarrassedly, "Dr. Qin, in fact, everyone was joking with you just now." At this time, Dong Anna, Zhao Meng and the others also came over. Zhao Meng said, "Yes, Dr. Qin, it's the first time we've met. We made a little joke with you. Please don't take it to heart." Dong Anna had just seen Qin Haodong's ordinary clothes and thought that he was just a poor Chinese medicine practitioner. She did not expect that he was a rich man who owned such a luxurious plane. He was young, handsome and so rich. He was simply the best among men. At this moment, when she looked at Qin Haodong again, her eyes were full of naked desire. She wished she could immediately pounce on him and roll in bed with him. As for Su Hui next to him, since he was rich, she did not care about having a few more women. "Yes, handsome boy, you're so handsome. How can I be willing to drive you away?" Dong Anna said in a coquettish voice. Her voice was so charming that it was like a different person from her previous sarcasm. Qin Haodong glanced at the three of them and said with a sneer, "Are you kidding? Do you think your IQ is lower or mine?" He had just been acting cool, but in the blink of an eye, he had been slapped in the face. Zhuo Bufan's heart was full of anger, but he could not lose his temper. In order to keep the young man in front of him, he could only give up his face. "Dr. Qin, I'm sorry. I was wrong just now. I shouldn't have made a fuss. Please, for the sake of this task, please forgive me." He was also a smart man. He knew that he could not fool Qin Haodong, so he immediately chose to lower his head and admit his mistake. Seeing that Zhuo Bufan had lowered his head and admitted his mistake, the others no longer cared about their dignity. They all followed suit and said, "Dr. Qin, I'm sorry. We were wrong just now." Zhao Meng's eyes flickered as he spoke. For a person like him who was good at flattery, admitting his mistake was nothing at all. What he needed to figure out now was how to get more benefits later. In contrast, Dong Anna's apology was very sincere. Now she really felt that she had been wrong just now. She had almost missed such a young rich man. What she wanted to do now was to please Qin Haodong. It would be best if she could pull him into bed. Guotao lowered his head. His uncle was the deputy director of the Biological Research Institute. This time he had used his family's connections to come here. This guy had always been arrogant. Now, although he was forced to lower his head and admit his mistake because of the situation, he was extremely unconvinced in his heart. He secretly made up his mind to get back the face he had lost when he got the chance. Although the three of them had different mentalities, they all lowered their heads and admitted their mistakes. Qin Haodong said, "It's because this task is urgent that I took out my private plane to be in a hurry. Otherwise we would have to wait until evening. Do you think I'm wasting time or saving time?" Since he had already lowered his head, Zhuo Bufan did not continue to be stubborn. He quickly nodded and said, "Dr. Qin is of noble character and unquestionable integrity. We were wrong." Thinking of the overall situation, Qin Haodong did not care about these people anymore. He waved his hand to the pilot and the flight attendant, and they returned to the plane together. Soon the door of the plane was closed. After a short taxi, it flew in the direction of Yundian province. After sitting down again, everyone's attitude towards Qin Haodong had changed completely. Although Zhuo Bufan was the person in charge of this operation and was appointed as the leader of the expert group, he was now sitting on someone else's plane. He was the guest and his family was the host, so the arrogance on his face was much less. Sun Fengqing still had a faint smile on his face, but there was a trace of appreciation in his eyes when he looked at Qin Haodong. No one knew whether it was because Qin Haodong could take out the plane for disaster relief or because of something else. Yi Liang was even more curious, while Dong Anna kept flirting with them, and from time to time she would flirt with them. Guotao had been flirting with Dong Anna since he got on the plane. Now this woman did not even look at him. She kept flirting with that toy boy, which made him even more resentful towards Qin Haodong. In contrast, Zhuo Bufan's reaction was extremely calm, as if nothing had happened just now. He took out a tablet and said to everyone present, "Just now Minister Zhao sent me a new piece of information. The Department of Sanity of Yundian Province has already carried out a medical examination on Yo Erwa to find the source of infection. They found that there were 2 small red spots on his neck. It is speculated that he had been bitten by some creature before, so he was infected with this special virus. According to the current situation, it is very likely that a bat bit him." After that, he handed the tablet in his hand to Wang Aimin. "Professor Wang, you are an expert in animal research. There are photos on it. Take a look and see if it was bitten by a bat." Wang Aimin took the laptop, took Wang Erwa's photo and kept zooming in on it. He observed it carefully. Guotao, who was next to him, also looked at it. Although he was here to gain experience, he was also a college student who graduated from the Department of Biology, so he still knew some basic knowledge. After carefully observing for a few minutes, Wang Aimin said, "Because it has been a long time, the wound has already scabbed, so I can't be 100% sure. But judging from the bite marks, it is very likely that it was a bat." In order to show his professional ability, Guotao also said, "I agree with Professor Wang. It must have been a bat that bit Nyo Erwa." Then he said to Zhuo Bufan, "Leader, I have a question that I don't understand." Chapter 774. Zhuo Bufan glanced at him meaningfully and said, "From now on we're a team. If there's anything you don't understand, just tell me." Guotao said, "The situation is really urgent this time. I heard that 7 or 8 villagers have been infected with the virus. If we can't control it effectively, the consequences will be extremely serious. From the current point of view, Western medicine can cure the disease, and the Institute of Biochemistry can study and analyze this rare virus. Our Biological Research Center can give you relevant information about bats so that we can find the source of the virus. But I don't understand why we have to bring so many doctors of traditional Chinese medicine with us. What's the use of them? Can it be that those grass roots and rotten leaves can eliminate the virus? I don't believe it." "Hey, what are you talking about? What do you mean that Western medicine can cure the disease? Can't we Chinese medicine?" This guy had been talking for a long time, and it turned out that he just wanted to beat around the bush to criticize traditional Chinese medicine. His target was Qin Haodong, but the first one to stand up against him was Sun Bowie. Although Sun Bowie did not like Qin Haodong, the Sun family had been practicing traditional Chinese medicine for generations and regarded Sun Simiao as their ancestor. How could he allow others to slander traditional Chinese medicine? Guo said with disdain. What? Could it be that I'm wrong? Apart from treating some minor diseases such as colds and fevers, what else can traditional Chinese medicine do? Do you know how many kinds of viruses there are? Do you know what the structure of the virus is? Do you know which antibiotics are effective for which virus? Do you know what treatment is the most targeted? Sun Bowie was speechless by Guo Tao's series of rhetorical questions. Although he had also gone to college, he had majored in traditional Chinese medicine, so he didn't know anything about Western medicine. Sun Fengqin shook his head slightly. His grandson was still too young and impulsive. However, Qin Haodong had a better impression of Sun Bowie. He was able to stand up for traditional Chinese medicine at this time, which naturally won his favor. He said, Mr. Guo, right? I don't think your questions are reasonable. We study traditional Chinese medicine, which has its own medical system. There's no need to know about Western medicine. Sun Bowie came to his senses and said, that's right. We're traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. As long as we can cure diseases, it's enough. Why do we study those viruses? Guo Tao stared at Qin Haodong and said, I don't want to tell you more about medicine, but let me ask you. The source of infection is probably bats. How much do you know about bats? Do you know how many teeth a bat has? Do you know the habits of bats? Do you know how many kinds of germs bats carry? In his opinion, the pretty boy in front of him would not be able to answer such a professional question. Sure enough, Qin Haodong shook his head. I don't know either. If you don't know anything, what qualifications do you have to join the expert panel? Just because you have a plane? Guo Tao was now confident. After all, the plane was flying in the air. No matter how powerful Qin Haodong was, he could not turn the plane around and fly back, let alone drive Guo Tao down from the air. It was because of this idea that he dared to stand up and unscrupulously suppress Qin Haodong. He wanted to slap him in the face and make his existence known. But this time, Qin Haodong ignored him at all. Instead, he smiled and said to Su Hui beside him, I just came out in a hurry and haven't had lunch yet. Are you hungry? Su Hui nodded. After a long morning, it was already 1:10 p.m. She was indeed a little hungry. Moreover, the capital was thousands of kilometers away from Yundian province. They were expected to arrive in the evening, so they had to have lunch at noon. Not only were they hungry, but the others also rushed to the plane. No one had time to have lunch. At the moment, they were already hungry. Because of this, everyone stopped talking and waited for lunch. Well, let's eat, Qin Haodong said and waved to the two flight attendants next to him. The flight attendants immediately began to distribute lunch. Lunch was in the form of a set meal. Each person had a plate. The dishes on the plate were very rich, including beef with soy sauce, braised chicken, steamed fish, several kinds of vegetables and rice. It smelled delicious and made people want to eat it. The flight attendants distributed the set meal one by one. In the end, everyone had a set meal. Only Guo Tao had nothing in front of him. He suddenly became anxious and shouted, Qin, what do you mean? Are you going to avenge a personal grudge? Qin Haodong picked up a piece of beef with soy sauce, put it in his mouth and chewed it slowly. After eating it, he said faintly, Mr. Guo, I also want to ask you a few questions. Let's see if you can answer them. Guo Tao said angrily, You're not convinced, are you? As long as it's about biology, I'm sure I can give you an answer. In terms of professional knowledge, although he was not as good as Professor Wang Aimin, who led the team, he thought he was 100 times better than others. Qin Haodong pointed to the braised chicken in front of him with chopsticks and said, Mr. Guo, tell me, what was the color of this chicken when it was alive? Guo Tao almost choked to death by his own saliva. Who could answer such a question? Qin Haodong smiled and said, You can't tell me, can you? Then tell me, how many hairs did this cow have when it was alive? How many scales did this fish have? How much food did they eat in total? How many kilograms did it grow to? Guo Tao said angrily, Qin Haodong, what kind of bullshit question is this? Who can answer it? Qin Haodong said indifferently, Since you can't answer it, what qualifications do you have to eat? The people around burst into laughter. Originally, they all thought that Qin Haodong would swallow his anger. They didn't expect that the young man's way of fighting back was so special and sharp. Guo Tao's old face swelled like a pig's liver. He said unwillingly, What does it have to do with these questions? Qin Haodong said, Can traditional Chinese medicine cure diseases? Whether or not I'm qualified to join the panel of experts, what does that have to do with your bullsh*t? You don't need to know the detailed information of the cow to eat beef. Why do traditional Chinese medicine practitioners have to figure out the situation of bats and poisonous snakes? We only need to be able to detoxify and cure diseases. The rest is meaningless nonsense. As for the qualification of traditional Chinese medicine practitioners to participate in the expert group, it's not something that people like you can question. Keep your mouth shut and go back to get your benefits. His identity was exposed in public. Guo shouted angrily, Qin Haodong, no matter what, you have no right not to give me food. Qin Haodong sneered and said, Mr. Guo, you have to know that I lent this plane to the Ministry of Health. You are also a member of the expert group. You can sit here, but I didn't promise Minister Xiao to be responsible for logistics. In principle, everyone should prepare their own lunch. I'm willing to provide food for others, but I'm not willing to do it for people like you. Guo Tao's face turned red, but he couldn't say anything. Indeed, the plane belonged to him and the food was also his. It was a favor to give him food, and it was his duty not to give him food. He had no right to ask others to prepare lunch for him. Smelling the aroma of the food, his stomach growled. He couldn't help looking at Zhuo Bufan, wanting to ask his team leader for help. But he found that his previous helpers and comrades didn't even look at him. They just attacked the food in front of them, including Zhuo Bufan. He didn't even raise his head and didn't mean to help him. In fact, everyone on the plane could see that the young man in front of them couldn't be provoked. Once they spoke up for Guo Tao, they might lose their lunch. In this way, Guo Tao could only watch others eat and keep swallowing his saliva. He regretted it so much now. Why did he say that just now? Even if he wanted to say something, he should have waited until after lunch. Now he was in such a mess. After lunch, the flight attendants took away the plates and everyone leaned against their seats to rest. After a while, Yi Liying's face became paler and paler. She frowned and looked painful. Qin Haodong said, Sister, are you airsick? Yi Liying nodded and said, I do have such a problem. It's okay for a short flight, but once I sit for a long time I will get airsick. At this time, Zhao Meng came over and said, Sister, let me introduce myself. I'm the director of the Internal Medicine Department of the Central Hospital and a returned doctor from M country. I can help you see if you feel uncomfortable. This time he came out to be gilded, but it was also good to have a few romantic encounters in the process. So after getting on the plane, he kept looking at the three women opposite him. The most beautiful woman on the plane was Su Hui, but she had been sitting next to Qin Haodong and didn't even look at him, so he naturally had no chance. Although the woman in front of him was a little old, she was still very beautiful and plump. She was the kind of mature young woman that men liked the most, so this guy seized the opportunity to please her. Yi Liying held her forehead with her hand and said, Thank you, Dr. Zhao. I'm fine. I'm just a little airsick and nauseous. Sister, I'm the best at treating airsickness. I have some medicine here. You'll be fine after taking one. Zhao Meng took out a small bottle from his pocket and gave it to Yi Liying. Yi Liying looked at the medicine in Zhao Meng's hand, shook her head and said, It's useless, Dr. Zhao. My body is special and I'm allergic to this kind of medicine. Otherwise, I would have taken it before I got on the plane. Well, Zhao Meng originally wanted to please her, but he didn't succeed. Sun Bowie said, Doctor, do you have any other way? As a Chinese medicine practitioner, he had unconsciously stood on the same side as Qin Haodong. Zhao Meng said with a little embarrassment, Sister Ye's body is special and she's allergic to medicine, so I don't have any good way. Let me do it. Qin Haodong took out his needle bag and said to Yi Liying, Sister Yi, acupuncture is also good for treating air sickness. Do you want me to give you an injection? Yi Liying said, Thank you, Dr. Qin. You're welcome. We're all members of the same team. It's our duty to help each other. After that, Qin Haodong pierced several acupoints on Yi Liying's head and chest with silver needles. It was amazing. As soon as the silver needles were pierced, Yi Liying's nausea and discomfort disappeared, and she became much more energetic. Dr. Qin, your medical skills are really amazing. Thank you. Qin Haodong smiled. After 5 minutes, he took back all the silver needles. At this time, Dong Anna said in a charming voice, Dr. Qin, your medical skills are so good. Let me have a look. I'm also a little uncomfortable. Hearing her words, Su Hui frowned. Although she was simple by nature, she could see that this woman was not sick at all. Instead, she wanted to seduce Qin Haodong. As a doctor, Qin Haodong could not refuse. He said, What's wrong with you? Dong Anna reached out to touch her towering chest and said coquettishly, I'm so uncomfortable here. Maybe I'm also airsick. Why don't you give me an injection? Qin Haodong said, I'd better feel your pulse. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.